Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Foxborough's October 20th Board of Selectmen meeting. I'll go through the agenda briefly. At 7 o'clock, we have citizens input. At 7:05, Selectmen's update. At 7:10, we're visited by Kevin Penders and our new library director, Manuel Leite. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. We have a public hearing for National Grid at 7:15. We might bump that a little bit later in the agenda. At 7:25, Jake and Joe's is going to be in front of us for a change of manager. At 7:35, Roger Hill, our DPW director, and Chief O'Leary, our police chief, is going to revisit the topic of the signs that we recently put up on Fales Place and Gilmore Street, directing through traffic. At 7:45, Bill Caspera, our building commissioner, is going to discuss the wireless antenna proposal on some of the utility poles in town. At 7:35, we had a published agenda item for the Foxborough Housing Authority appointment of Tom Kelly, and we're going to take that off the agenda and put that on the next agenda on, what is that,
November 3rd.
November 3rd. At 8:05, Randy Scollins is going to, finance director, is going to discuss, and we're going to hopefully vote on authorization to refund the town of Foxborough's bonds. And then at 8:15, our town manager, Bill Caspera. I was doing well up to that.
That's all right.
But he is here for two other items. So Bill Keegan is going to talk about the community compact discussion. And we're going to revisit the warrant articles that we have for the fall-winter town meeting. And then Bill Keegan, again, will talk about a town manager update. And then Mary Beth, our assistant town manager, will give her update on the vehicle use policy that we are reviewing as draft tonight. So I notice in our audience, Kevin Penders from the library director is discussion. You want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Right. Do you remember the words?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, being at 7 o'clock, is there anyone here for citizens input? Welcome. If you could just introduce yourself and come to the microphone. We, just so everyone knows, we are on camera as well. So.
Hello, my name's Laura Bradley. I'm here with my husband Mike. We live at 23 Gilmore Street. So I just wanted to give a little input regarding our thoughts on how the new signs are working out.
Can I interrupt you?
Sure.
Do you have time to stay a little bit later? Because this is going to be an item on the...
I do,
okay.
yeah.
So what I was planning on doing is hearing from our public safety officials in
Yep.
DPW.
Yep.
And then opening it up to the residents. I think we invited the people who had signed the petition.
Okay.
Was in front, and then we'll listen to you then, and that way we
Yep.
can have a full board discussion.
That's fine.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else for citizens input? Okay. Just a couple brief updates. I guess one request to the board or to the town manager. There's two projects that are in appeal right now. We obviously won't talk about them, but one is the 40B off of Fisher Street that residents are appealing, and the other one is a definitive or a subdivision that they appealed the DEP from a decision that the town made. So I've been getting some questions on representation, our town council, who authorizes the spending, how much. Strong Town Manager Act, we have our own policy on how to approach council as do other boards. So maybe at the next agenda, could you provide us with the policy on how that is? So at least we have a general idea as we move forward to both of these.
Absolutely.
Is that fine with you guys?
Yeah.
And I know we had come up with a policy a few years ago. It might have been before your times, but it's just nice to refresh it.
Sure.
One topic I want to bring, it's a new topic, and something that I think we're going to go towards in January. On Columbus Day weekend, Dave, myself, Chris Long, Linda Walsh, and a representative from, I think it was a psychologist, Chad McWhinney, who runs the adolescent addiction program from McLean Hospital that Dave had introduced to Foxborough. got together, going back a little bit in November, we had a resident come up to us and ask why our public safety official not carrying Narcan, and kind of brought us into the discussion of the opioid crisis, not specifically Foxborough, but coming down the pike that everyone started to kind of talk about. So over the last year, we brought it in front of our board a number of times. We had different sessions in town. So when we got together this weekend, we had an idea of, rather than kind of reinventing the wheel and trying to go in different directions, have a forum in town and invite input from public safety, first responders, the schools, our social services, community advocates regarding the drug issue. And I don't want to lay this on Foxborough, but it's a state and a national issue. But at least putting everybody together in a round forum, open it up to public discussion, and try to wrap our arms around, you know, what the issue is in Foxborough, what our directors are seeing, get their input, and have a better perspective, a collective perspective, rather than a few advocates going in different directions in town. So I'd like the board to be involved in that at some level also. And as January approaches, maybe reach out to the different department heads in those sectors and the school committee and ask them for some input, so we come into January with some background information and can have a good dialogue. So is that something that the board would entertain?
Sure.
Make sense?
Mr. Chairman, just the clarity is that, for clarity purposes, that you're looking for a forum where we will talk about primarily the use of Narcan, or the or
Oh, no, no. Narcan's one piece of it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
But in the big picture, if you listen to people that are involved, either with family members or see it on a day-to-day,
Okay.
It's a very, very serious, we've got to do something yesterday.
Right.
On the other side, people that aren't privy to it might not know it's even going on. But rather than speculate, I want to hear from the schools and the police and the fire of what they're seeing in town. So once we have that information, we can kind of better gauge if this is something that the school needs to spend more time on, or the police or the fire, or, you know, different communities approach it differently. If you go down south towards the Plymouth area, there's 3 or 4 or 5 towns working collectively. You go in other areas and they don't even talk about it. So I think it's just more to gauge where Foxborough is with all of this.
Okay.
Another item coming up this Thursday, and it may have been coming from me, a mistake on my side, but there's a open house on Thursday at 4 o'clock. So I've been getting a bunch of calls. The craft group is getting calls, not knowing what this is all about. And we brought it up at another earlier meeting. So this Thursday at 4 o'clock, it's a public meeting, and it was initiated by the selectmen with the craft group. As the different permits come up in front of us and the different changes at the stadium, the Optimum Lounge, the Draft King Lounge, the Cross Insurance Pavilion, the 2 new super boxes, and other items around there. When they're in front of us, I think we have a hard time gauging what exactly it is. So we've invited the planning board, the advisory committee, the Board of Health, the public safety officials to kind of walk the stadium so we can better understand it. Because it's a public meeting, we invited the public, but it's not an autograph, see the locker room tour. It's a working session, and I was asked to, at the beginning of the meeting, I'll explain to the people who do show up, but that's at 4 o'clock. If you're interested from the public to come, we're meeting at field level under the bridge, by the Blue Gate. So anyone that from town that's hearing this, more than welcome to show up at 4 o'clock on Thursday. And I think everyone from this board is coming as well. Yeah. What else we got? Next Tuesday at 7 o'clock, a joint meeting. I think it's a planning board's meeting with the Board of Selectmen, the Water and Sewer Department, to talk about the development around the common with respect to sewer and master plan. So I think this is our 3rd meeting coming up. Mm-hmm. So there's progress. I wasn't able to attend the last one. Some of you guys did. but we're starting to put together the infrastructure process around town, and it is very helpful. So if anyone's available, that's 7 o'clock, and it's in this room next Tuesday.
Is there anything going on next Monday night?
Is it?
Is there anything going on next Monday night for some reason? I want to say there was something.
No, the meeting's definitely Tuesday.
Yeah, but no, you're asking if there was another meeting on Monday?
Yeah. Is there something else?
The Personnel Wage Board on the same night, but at 5:30 on the 27th.
Okay.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you.
And then, were you going to talk about the town planner when you're?
Yeah, I can,
We can do that at the end.
I can do it at the end, yeah,
Okay.
I can mention it.
And then one just quick bit of good news, the SRPEDD, which is the Southeast Regional Planning and Economic Development District. Were you going to talk about that? I can give a quick.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
I'll just do it,
was
yeah.
distracted for a
So-
second. I'm sorry.
There was a grant that was just offered for the regional planning for Route 140 corridor.
Oh,
So I was
okay.
just going to say congratulations. I know
Yes.
Jay Barrows pushed for
Yes.
that. I know you were involved in that, and
Yeah.
it's $160,000 worth of study on the
Mhm.
140 corridor, and that's been a kind of a thorn in our side. And what's interesting about that grant is Foxborough's not included in that until we kind of advocated for it. So we're included in that, and there's no additional upcharge to us. So that's,
Right.
hopefully we can get our arms around 140, so.
It's a unique study in many ways, and I'll get into it later on, but it was, because it involves two regional planning agencies, which is something that you never see happen.
Yeah.
I think the two of them working together,
Yeah,
which is
so
great to see.
hopefully there's some hope. So, anyone else on update
Thank you.
information?
Bill, are you going to talk about the flushing program?
With the what?
The flushing, hydrant flushing?
I didn't have it on my list, but I can do that if you want.
Because Roger's here. Did you want
Mention it?
to talk about the hydrant flushing reminder? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
sure, yep.
We started our fall flushing program a week ago, Tuesday night, and we've flushed continuously since then, with the exception of the weekends and Monday nights. And we've been extremely successful this year. We're using a hydraulic model that we had done for the water system. And what it allows us to do is to sequentially flush mains by taking them out of service as anything but the customers that are on that main and the hydrants that we open, and we can isolate that from the rest of the town while the flushing's taking place. So we haven't had any black water complaints with the flushing, which is amazing, because if you saw what we're getting out of the pipes, you'd understand why the black water is such an issue in Foxborough. We've had the opportunity to do Beach Street, Young Road, Edwards, North Street, and this is preparatory to the annual work that goes on up at the Foxborough terminal when they clean the fire control system, and that always gives us black water. So we're setting it up so that we won't get the black water this time, and we're going to continue this every night with advertising, and we have notices on the town Facebook, we have it on the website, and we have signs up in the neighborhoods that are going to be done. We'll continue it until the weather gets freezing at night, and then we have to terminate it for safety reasons. But it's been a very successful flushing program compared to previous years with no calls. I just wanted to bring the board up to speed and maybe let the public know what's going on up there too. Thank you.
Great, thank you, nice to hear.
Raj.
That's Roger Hill, our DPW Director. So the next item on our agenda, I'd like to invite Kevin Penders up front.
So I'm delighted to have with me tonight Manny Leet, as in elite, but with a silent E, who has been, and also in the back, I want to note that Joe Lally and Tom McGee from the library board are here also, and more importantly, Audrey McGee from the McGee House is here. To all on the premise of us just taking the opportunity to introduce to you guys our new library director, effective well, we're in a transition period right now, but he will be the full-time director effective as of Saturday, October 31st, as Jerry Cirillo's last day is effective Friday, October 30th. So just, and I'm going to let Manny certainly introduce himself and speak to all of you. And I hope you'll all stop by the library and take the opportunity to get to know him a little bit. We're excited to have him. But we received word back in June from Jerry, formal notice, that after 12 years he was planning to step down effective October 31. And with that, we began the process of doing a pretty thorough screening process and hiring process to come forward with a candidate. The trustees met, appointed an 8-member screening committee. We tried to get various cross-sections from town to make sure we had the necessary representation. We had Mary Beth was good enough to volunteer and serve in the capacity of representative from Town Hall. We had 2 members of the library staff, Deb Volpini and Margie Rossetti. We had 3 members of the trustees, myself, Joe, and Tom. We had a member of the Friends, Dave Crimmins. And then we asked Jeff Lovely in his capacity as certainly somebody who was involved in the last screening process for the library director, and as a former trustee and a member of the public who uses the library. So with that, we worked with Mary Beth. We sent out a posting. We received 21 applications from interested candidates. We met to review those. We narrowed those down to 7 that we conducted phone interviews with. And then following those phone interviews, we met and moved forward with interviewing 3 candidates in person. And based on those 3 interviews, we represented and presented 2 candidacies to the trustees for full consideration. And having met with Manny in September, we then proceeded to get to know him a little bit again, for those of us who had already met him, and voted unanimously to offer the position to Manny to replace Jerry, which he, thank God, accepted. And so here we are. And Manny comes to us from the East Bridgewater Library, and he'll certainly introduce himself. I won't need to speak for him. As you'll see, he's more than happy to chat with all of you as well. And we're very much looking forward to having him come in, have some fresh ideas, and bring us some new programming ideas and opportunities. We're a little, we're very fortunate. We don't have a major capital project that we have to do at this point. Jerry really did a great job of getting us from the old building to renovated space to the new building, and to give us largely a turnkey operation that we have the great ability to hand off to Manny. And so we're looking forward to seeing what he will do as the caretaker of the building and programming. And with that, I'll let Manny introduce himself a little bit.
Right.
Thank you, Kevin.
Sure.
First, I just want to point out and thank Kevin and Bill and Mary Beth for making the transition, the process, very smooth and very easy. Matter of fact, today, Superintendent Spinelli gave me a tour of the 5 schools, and then Bill gave me a tour of the outskirts and around the surrounding area here of Foxborough. So the whole process has been terrific and smooth. One thing, I've been here for 2 days, is how great this community is. And during the interview, I mentioned, and I believe in this was instilled in me when I was young. The library is the hub or the center of the community. It's a building where all ages can come and congregate, and we have various programs and materials to check out, and civic organizations can certainly use our meeting room. And Kevin mentioned fresh ideas, and I intend to do that here. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be meeting with each and every department head, and I look forward to working with each and every department head and the Board of Selectmen, as well as staff, and especially get to know the residents. So I do encourage the residents, if you see me at the library or I'm crossing the street, please stop by and say a quick hi. We can chat about the library, and if there's anything you'd like to see at the library, any improvements or any suggestions, I'm more than happy to welcome any at any time. And I'm looking forward to working here in Foxborough. Again, it's been 2 days and it's been fantastic, and there's going to be some great things coming up. So I again thank Kevin, Bill, and Mary Beth for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you.
I
Thank
get
you,
up there as
Manny.
often as I can, but welcome to town.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to it.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I understand it was quite a search, and you made the right choice.
We think so. We
Yeah.
think so.
It's a brand-new building, and it's a magnificent building. And I came from East Bridgewater, and that's what we were working on, is to have a brand-new facility or renovate the facility. So at that time, I was bringing in various programs and events to get the residents into the library. Here in Foxborough, you already have, that's a tall hurdle, believe me. And you've accomplished that. So now what I'm going to do is to bring the residents into the library. And again, like I said, I encourage a conversation. Please speak to me and any suggestions that you may have.
Very good. Thank you, Manny. And I
Thank you.
know, I mean, it's an absolutely beautiful building that you're inheriting. And I do know your work in East Bridgewater, and I know the process that they're going through now.
Yeah.
And I know you are missed over there already, because they're just starting their work, so.
Yeah.
And it's a great board that you're working with. They've done a tremendous effort to get the building where it is, as did Jerry. He did a phenomenal
Absolutely.
job putting
No,
it together.
Jerry steered the ship for his 12-year tenure. There's
Yeah.
no question.
So,
Yeah.
welcome, and
Thank you.
come often if you have any questions of us, and hopefully we'll see you over at the library.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
So
you.
before I go, here's my plug. It's post-Columbus Day. We are open again on Sundays from now through April.
I saw the banner.
Big banner.
We have a whole bunch of programming opportunities set up. Kathy Belharney, our head of adult services, has done a great job lining up some musical guests and some book talks, and the whole schedule of events are available on our website and are also available on Facebook. The library has a Facebook page. So since I don't come and speak on cable access very often, because we are not televised, and I'm not advocating that we be, this is my opportunity to put in a quick plug to say check the calendar of events and come visit us often. We look forward to having you in here.
Great. And
Also,
as an
what the-
elected official and an elected volunteer, thank you. You guys do a great job.
Yeah.
So,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Also, don't you have a book sale coming up?
The Friends
collecting
have a
books?
book sale coming up in November, the date of which I don't have committed to my brain, and shame on me for saying that out loud. What is it, Tom? 19th. Thank you, Tom. It's the 19th through the 21st. See, that's why we brought him. That
He's rolling his eyes at you. You should have known that.
So they're collecting books now? Can they be-
well, they've been collecting books, and now they're actually. I think they'll probably still take them, but they're segregating the books into the various topics, breaking them down, getting them ready for putting out onto the floor. And they will be there for the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Mr. Chairman, word has it that Manny does a TV show as well, so he'll be competing with time with the town manager now on his TV show. So, no, quite honestly,
We're going to make him do it from the stacks, though.
exactly, yeah, that's right. He'll do it from his own location, so that'll be fine. We're very pleased to have Manny with us. I want to thank Mary Beth, because she was our representative there and did a terrific job of working with the committee, and I think they made a terrific choice. I think Manny will become a great part of our team. We're trying to incorporate him right away into the process of getting to know everybody, know what everybody does, and all the different functions that they perform. Get to know all the facilities. We did a windshield survey of the facilities today, but we've got meetings set up with all the department heads, so he'll get a chance to actually get in and see those facilities and see how, we maybe extend the library services into those facilities somehow. Some way, we got another way of reaching out to the community. But I couldn't agree with him more in terms of his philosophy of how the library is the center of the universe for our community, where it becomes a social gathering place for many different reasons, with many different aspects in arts and culture in the community. So I think it's really, really good that he's going to be an advocate for that. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say thanks to Jerry for all the work that he's done for the past 12 years. Clearly, he's done a terrific job, and he's got big shoes to fill.
Yes.
But quite honestly, I think we're very excited about his being here.
Okay, well said. All right, thank you, Manny.
Thanks for having us.
Kevin. Appreciate it. So it being 7:25, if it's okay with the board, I'm going to bump the National Grid discussion. Bill Caspera is at executive session with the zoning board, so he'll come and join us again later in the agenda. So if there's
It's a public hearing.
Yeah, sure.
is there anyone here Is there anyone here from National Grid?
Do we have to open?
Okay. I think what we'll do is we'll open it, because I do want to hear from our building inspector on this item. He's tied up in an executive session at the zoning board in a different building, but he said he was going to try to get here by 7:35 or so 10, 15 minutes if you could wait. So we'll read this into the record to open it, and then we'll continue it.
All right, I'll read the legal notice. Tuesday, October 20th, 2015, at approximately 7:15 p.m., the Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing in the Foxborough High School Media Center, South Street, Foxborough, Mass., on the application of Massachusetts Electrical Company doing business as National Grid for an earth removal permit to be exercised at Lot 324 Washington Street, Foxborough, Mass. About 325 cubic yards of material will be removed from the construction site as shown on the existing conditions plan dated April 9th, 2015, with the scale of 1 inch equals 30 feet as engineered by WSP, and the fence and grading plan dated September 29th, 2015, engineered by Jeff Goldberg and submitted by Joshua Lee Smith. Plans may be viewed at the Office of the Board of Selectmen, 40 South Street, Foxborough, Mass.
Okay, so okay to the board to continue that for 15 minutes or so? So Jake and Joe's change of manager, this representation from Good evening.
Good evening.
So, just if you, for the record, if you could introduce yourselves.
Sure, my name is Attorney John Mitchell-Moore. I'm representing the applicant for the license holder for Jake and Joe's. And this is Nicole Bramwell, who is the person who is going to be applying to be the new manager at Jake and Joe's.
Okay, so the board in front of you, you have a full application with all the nuances, details. So this is going under the Grand Slam Restaurant concepts?
Yes.
Now, you've been managing the Jake and Joe's in Norwood?
I was, yes.
Okay, so this is not a new venture for you? This
No.
is
No, and I've
just
been
another
with,
location?
yeah, I just moved from Norwood to Foxborough.
Okay. Is it a step up, I hope?
Yes,
Okay.
it is. And I've been there since we opened in Foxborough.
Did John make you familiar with the town of Foxborough's liquor regulations?
I'm aware of them, yes.
Okay, good. Always a question you have to ask.
Okay, so we'll open up to more questions from the board. No particular order.
Are you familiar with the Fox Cares group?
The what?
The Fox Cares group?
I am not.
Okay, there's a group of liquor license holders that get together, and they share best practices, and it's becoming a pretty formidable group.
Okay.
I can have them reach out to you.
Sure.
Love to see Jake and Joe's participate. So.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Dave, have they been participating in the past? Has Jake and Joe's had a representative there?
No,
They have not?
been, no.
Okay, all this good opportunity.
Yep.
Nicole has a current ServSafe certificate. Just by way of a little bit more introduction, Nicole is a resident of Norton. She's been employed by the Nocera family, who owns the Chateau restaurants and the Jake and Joe's, for about 10 years. First as in the Chateau in Norton, and then in Braintree. She moved to Norwood, where she became the manager. And then when the Foxborough opened in 2013, she came here. And although she's not the manager of record, technically the internal name is general manager. So she's been very active in actually running the Jake and Joe's in Foxborough for that period of time.
Any questions from the board?
Just a statement, the town of Foxborough is very concerned about the way the restaurants and the liquor establishments in the town of Foxborough are run, that you follow the rules and regulations, and that's all we ask, follow the rules and regulations. And although we like to see you, we really don't want to see you here.
Agreed.
So,
And we
just
do.
be, you know, and Fox Cares is a wonderful organization that gets you up and running in regard to that. And you have a wonderful attorney who can advise you. So welcome to Jake and Joe's, and
Thank
I hope
you.
you enjoy it.
I'm good.
So the Nacera family is, I mean, Jake and Joe's in their other restaurants, it's a nice family business. And
They are.
And it's a pleasure to have them in town. And as Ginny said, you know, we do have rules and regulations, and we try to take the subjectivity out of it from our side. So if you look at the end of the rules and regulations, it's as simple as strike one, strike two, strike three, and you're out. And for the most part, I think we've tried to keep to that. So hopefully, if it's understood on both sides, I think we're all a little better off on that. So,
Yep.
but I like what I've seen so far with Jake's and Joe's. It's a good family restaurant. It's been I think very successful
Yeah,
so
they're
far
doing
since
great.
they've opened. So, welcome, Nicole. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have a formal
Yeah,
vote?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the change of manager at Jake and Joe's to Nicole J. Bromwell.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion on the motion for approval? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the Fales Place Gilmore Street reevaluation. We had Roger Hill and Chief O'Leary. Would you mind coming up to the table? I had said at the beginning, this is something that a handful of residents had come for the simple description of as you're coming down 140 into the common, the traffic backs up, and people were turning right onto Fales Street in Gilmore, bypassing the common. And that neighborhood is very tight with turns and houses. So the residents had come in front of us asking, could we make it a one-way? Could we make it a no-through street sign? And can we make it a local traffic only sign? So we had discussions at our earlier meeting. We decided to put up 2 signs on 140 just as before you turn that says no through traffic. And we ran that for a while, and rather than just saying it's done, we asked our public safety officials and DPW to come back in front of us from their perspective. Was it the right decision? Was it effective? Or should we revisit it? And then we also reached out to the neighborhood again, and at the time of the first hearing, asked them to come back in the fall, once it's been running for a few months, to see if it was worth doing or if there was any changes needed. So with that background, I guess I'll turn it over to you, Chief, and if you can give us a update.
Thank you, Mr. DeVellis. When I saw that this item had been again put forth on the agenda, I asked Officer Hoffman to go out and do a further study. If you remember at the previous meeting, he made a presentation in front of the board to discuss some of the findings that we made concerning the amount of travel on the roadways, as well as some speed information based on the assessment. I'm going to ask Officer Hoffman just to update the board on a further study that we did, again, trying to track how many vehicles are coming, and, you know, from more, not a scientific methodology, but just stopping drivers and asking, you know, where they're going and where they're coming from. And it was found that many of them are Foxborough residents that are going down either Granite Street, Water, and South Street, Union Street, and they're just headed home. So I'll turn it over to him for a few minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have some more charts for you guys.
Sure. You do good work.
Alright.
Job, master.
First is I just have one set of pictures, okay?
Okay.
As stated, there was 2 studies done. One was prior to the sign being put up. It was after, I believe, the last meeting, where you guys initially stated to put up signs.
Okay.
This was in June.
Could I, not to interrupt you, but you either have to
Yep.
stand at the microphone or there, because
I'm
I know
not-
cable have a hard time hearing you from home. Thank you.
This is the latest study.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is gonna be the first study, just in volume only.
Okay, thank you.
We have results from the first study indicating what the speeds were on the street. You guys are interested?
I'll give it to you.
I like that guy.
Who's for that?
I used to have one, but it got stolen.
Okay. Just for a quick reference, the top indicates what day it is, obviously. The left side, the bottom, the left row indicates the time. If you scroll over and you see the numbers in between the date and the time, that indicates how many vehicles traveled within that hour. At the bottom of each row, it indicates the number of total vehicles in the course of that day. Looking at your first sheet, which is your red sheet with just the 2 days on it.
Yep.
Okay. That was the first study that we did. That was in June 2015. It was a 2-day study for Thursday and Friday. And what you can see is on Thursday and Friday, on those particular days, you had 123 vehicles on Thursday, 118 vehicles on Friday. The peak would have been at 5 o'clock with 44 vehicles in June on Thursday and 39 vehicles on Friday. All right, so fast forwarding ahead, last week I was asked by the chief to conduct another survey. This survey was conducted starting on Thursday, October 15th. It started at approximately 12 p.m. and it continued till Monday of this week and ended at 8 p.m. And what we saw was actually pretty significant increase of traffic.
Now, this is after the signs have been
This is
posted,
after
right?
the signs. Okay. We also saw a change in the amount of vehicles depending on what time of day it was. We saw a dramatic increase in the morning, which is, at first I thought, unusual because we don't have a backup on 140 in the morning. It's not really a cut through at that time. The change was so significant that the original survey shows at 9 o'clock in the morning, I believe both days had 8 vehicles. On Friday, October 16th, you see at 9 o'clock in the morning, 40 vehicles. And on Monday, at 9 o'clock, 33 vehicles. It wasn't until I put my detective hat on and I realized the Montessori school had started up.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the time. You know, when the first survey was done, it was during school vacation.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's attributing to an increase of vehicles. The original survey did include speed. The only reason why this survey did not is because the survey device that we use has multiple sensors on it. It needs 2 sensors to be working in order for it to calculate speed. We're down a sensor, so we only have 1 sensor, which gives us volume. All right, that's something that we're trying to address, but as of now, we just got volume. The speed indicated on the original survey, no vehicles were violating the statutory limit, which is 30 miles an hour. They're all well below.
Is it possible to go much faster than
No.
30? Because there's a short distance in the turn?
When I set up the original survey, I tried to set up kind of like a benchmark speed to show that it's working correctly. And I was fortunate enough to have Officer Head with me to help set up the machine. It's a little comprehensive. We have to put out tape and everything, and it can be dangerous depending on what type of road you're on.
Yep.
So I actually asked Officer Head to try to attempt to drive his vehicle over the strips at a certain speed. I either said 30 or 35. He couldn't reach that speed, not safely, so he said it's not possible for him. Now, someone want to be a madman and do it? Yeah, maybe. But.
Okay.
The other thing that we did, I went out and I took obviously those pictures of Fales Place and Gilmore Street. They do show some concerns in my mind of public safety. If you look at the third page on that picture, it does show a number of vehicles on the street. And a couple of vehicles are actually parked on the sidewalk, which is a violation of the town. So that could be something that could be addressed. Number two, I did measure the street out on certain points. Now, I don't claim to be a surveyor. I actually borrowed a measuring tape from our janitor, who was kind enough to let me borrow it. And I measured it from multiple points, starting in the beginning of Fales Place, the corner of Fales Place, and then 2 spots on Gilmore Street heading up to Granite Street. Let me just check for those results real quick. So in inches, the beginning of Fales Place, again, I just did it at random. This one happened to be at 2 sewer caps. I thought it was a good place to do it. So it was 245 inches at the corner. It's 270 inches. And starting on Gilmore Street, it's 254 inches and 250 inches. As a comparison, I was curious to see what other streets would be at. I did measure a spot on Union Street at 266 inches. I did bring in volume reports from Union, and they're comparable with the volume that Fales Place is receiving.
Pat, one question. If you take a look at this is the post-sign survey, and you go to 3 o'clock on Thursday and Friday afternoons, I'm assuming those numbers can be attributed to the Montessori school as well.
Yeah, the pickup times, absolutely.
Okay, and I'm imagining that would probably ease up around 4, but then from 5 on, say from 5 to 7, you're running into commuting
5 to
traffic.
7, definitely, and I think we had probably one of our worst commuting days Thursday, if I remember correctly. It was backed up all the way to the Dairy Queen.
But based on this, I would, just these numbers alone, maybe you could guide me. Is it safe to say the signs are having little impact? They're not preventing the traffic from going through as intended?
The individuals that I stopped, which were for generally other infractions, whether it be a stop sign, inspection sticker, I had stated to them, hey, just to let you know, they put up a no-through sign. No one said they saw it. So, no one said they saw it. And again, that was also part of our plan, was to go out there for 2 weeks. They assigned the North Sector car every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for a period of an hour to an hour and a half between the hours of 4:30 and 6 o'clock. And just to let you know, the North Sector car is the sector car that patrols Route 1, Patriot Place, North Street, Beach Street, Mechanic Street. So for that time period, he was assigned to Fales and Gilmore to basically do traffic control. And again, the signs, as far as we can tell, is unenforceable. So it had to be other things outside the realm of just cutting through.
Okay. But those are the actual counts for those times?
What's that?
These are the actual counts, not the number of cars you pull over, the actual traffic going through.
Oh yeah, this is
that
the
were-
actual number of vehicles
Right.
traveling through.
Okay. But it's actually interesting that nobody, I mean, the majority of folks that you actually stopped said they didn't see the no-through signs at all.
I don't think it's surprising. I mean, just placement of the sign, when you're turning, you're not gonna see that sign unless it's set back further. They don't really stick out.
Just to play devil's advocate, if I was stopped and they said, did you see the no-through sign? You think people are gonna say, yeah, I saw it?
Yeah, you never know. I mean, we try to approach every stop with a, you know, a positive attitude. We're not trying to,
Yeah.
we're not putting on the trooper mentality where you're going out there and, you know, kind of being hard on the person.
Sure.
You just, it's a public safety
Okay.
issue, and
So
most people-
genuinely, you think people just don't see the sign?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say so.
Okay. All right.
These traffic counts, they're all just Falls Place, right? Falls, and then of course they have to go into Gilmore. The Montessori Street, any traffic counts on there?
No.
No, okay.
So the Fales Place traffic count was placed pretty much in the middle of Fales Place prior to the turn, you know, the sharp turn.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else from the board? Chief or
I was going
Roger?
to have Roger talk about.
Okay.
There's, you know, I knew when we put the signs up that they wouldn't have much effect because they seldom do. But the idea is that there are other options. And we talked about them before we put the signs up. One was a one-way option. That would be an inconvenience to the residents, but it might keep more traffic off that road, and that's enforceable. You can make there's a way to make the black and whites enforceable, but it's very difficult for the police to do that under any circumstance because they have to basically stop and find out that the car is not occupied by people from the neighborhood. But in order for us to make those enforceable, we need to be approved through Mass Highway and the Registry of Motor Vehicles. And that's a difficult process. One of the things we do with most of the roads in town is we use Chapter 90 money on those roads, and that's statewide money. That comes from the gasoline tax. So restricting the roads to certain types of traffic, to local traffic, becomes a sticky wicket when you go to MassDOT. It can be done, but it's not easy.
Thank you.
No, I'm not a fan of making any street a one-way, but is there a way to do it during certain hours? From like 4 to 6, it's one-way?
Yeah, you can do that. It makes the sign pretty complicated, and if you drive the Common and drive Main Street coming down toward the Common, you'll see a field of signs in front of you. And people who are driving just will not immediately recognize those signs. The speed of approach, the time it takes for someone to intellect a sign, the intellection time, and the time it takes them to react to a sign gets them to the Common pretty quickly. So that's why many of the signs around the Common don't get observed, because people obviously don't see them, regardless of what we put up. We can put.
Once they get the first ticket, they'll know that it's one-way.
Yeah, that's.
And would those signs be then enforceable? If it's posted one-way between 4 and 6 p.m., is that an enforceable violation?
Takes a vote of the board to do it. You're traffic commissioners, and you can do that.
Roger, right now the signs, if you're driving toward the Common, you're on Main Street, okay, and here's Gilmore Street right here. The sign on Gilmore Street is facing this way. So when you're driving, okay, the sign's going this way. What if you had the sign
Turn the other way.
going that way?
They can be turned.
And that way you would at least see it, because chances are, the reason people take that shortcut is because they're heading into stalled traffic, and they go, poof, I can take a right. And they go right, but they won't see that sign if it's facing this way.
The problem with that is that some people would interpret that sign as applying to Main Street because it's facing Main Street.
Oh, okay.
It's really the psychological process of observing and reacting to a sign takes time, and people don't always equate that. They just, they're used to a certain way to travel, and a lot of times they'll just do it until, like you said, maybe they get a ticket for it or whatever. But it's not easy to control traffic with just signage. It just, you know, it works.
Roger, is there any thought on making the passage through Fails as tortuous as possible so that people just give up on it?
Well, at 245 inches with parked cars on the road, it's pretty torturous right now.
And they still do it.
That's 20 feet, 20 and a half feet. And that's not a lot of width. Normally, we build two 12-foot lanes. And the streets are pretty narrow and pretty congested. Close, a lot of things close to the road. I wouldn't say it wouldn't work. It will. It'll slow them down, but it wouldn't.
Because you see some roads, I see them all the time, where they pinch it in at the beginning.
Yeah, they
just
call
to-
that like a chicane.
Yeah, it's like a traffic softening mechanism.
Yeah.
And you look at it and go, boy, I can barely get my car in there, and give up on it.
You can do that too, but that would be more of a speed control than a directional traffic control. Probably the only thing that might work a little bit better than what you have is the one-way certain hours. And I would say that would be, you know, a vote of the board to do that. It's pretty easy to put them up.
Is given this data that you saw, Roger, is that the best alternative we have to work with right now?
I think so. I can't think of any others. And maybe, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I've done enough of it, so.
Chief, do you have anything to add from your experience there?
It's always been a roadway that's been very narrow. We don't get a tremendous amount of calls of any nature. It's a pretty close neighborhood. And I think it's been aggravated by the growth in traffic along the 140 corridor, where people, as Ms. Capola has said, see the road backed up all the time. They live someplace in South Foxborough, and they know that if they take these alternative routes, they're going to avoid the common altogether, which is, you know, their goal. I don't know whether enforcement alone is the key to bringing about a solution. It will be a temporary one as long as someone's there. And given the patrol plan, there's no guarantee that every night we'll have someone there because we have other duties to take care of. And if neighbors are here tonight, I'd like to hear, you know, if they have some proposals or, you know, a statement for the board so that we, you know, have a full and frank discussion.
Okay. All right, well, let's do that. Mrs. Bradley,
Can I
do you
just
want
ask one
Sure. Yep.
question before we get to that? From Dairy Queen up to the center, the common, is there anything that is changeable there to make the traffic not as congested?
Well, you have a situation where you have cars going into the rotary from 5 different access points. To a limited extent, a few cars are pulling in from Rock Hill Street, a tremendous traffic flow coming into the center from South Street. 140 coming up from Mansfield has a heavy traffic flow. Probably Bird Street is the smallest traffic flow, but because of that interchange of combining forces that they're managing themselves around the center, you're going to have backups, especially on your key streets. South Street, for example, at different times is backed up down to the Igo building. At other times, you know, Mechanic Street, not as bad as, you know, South and 140, but they all have backups.
So let me,
Okay, yeah, just make a comment.
sure,
real quick?
absolutely.
Just in regards to the parked cars on the street, slowing down traffic. Yes, it does slow down traffic, but it presents a major safety risk. A parked car basically obscures the view of an operator. If you do have a small child that is behind that car, you're not going to see it till last second, whereas if you have a wider view, you're going to obviously be able to react in time. You see it happen a lot.
Yeah.
I think the last one was in Quincy that I can remember.
Yep.
Child came
Right
out,
through.
and car wasn't going that fast, so that's my comment on that. So.
Okay. Yeah, well stated. So I also want to be cognizant, we've got 5 or 6 other items on here. This can't turn into a design charrette of how we're going to solve it tonight, but I do want to hear from if any of the residents are here. So, Mrs. Bradley, do you want to jump back in?
Thank you. That was good information. I remember I'm not sure how many years ago, but I think it was about 15 years ago or so when Chief O'Leary actually agreed to give us a stop sign where Fales and Gilmore intersect. And that was because the neighbors at the time, my kids were small at the time, and a number of neighbors got together, and we did feel that that slowed down the traffic. And I remember some of the same issues at that time. You said it wasn't like a completely legit stop sign, but we were going to put it up and see if it worked. And it did work, because now people do have to stop halfway down the street. So that's good. I do see traffic, of course, and I am often, you know, I've dealt with the Montessori traffic for the 23 years that we've lived there. There's definitely an increase in traffic backed up at the center. But I just feel like, you know what, it's a fact of life. I live 1 block from Route 140. I don't like to see speeders and, you know, people driving fast. My own family is guilty of parking on the street because we have 4 vehicles, 4 adults living in the house. We have nowhere else to park. We have a little tiny driveway and a 6,000 square foot lot. So 2 cars go in the driveway, 2 cars, and one of them's a big pickup truck on the street, you know, when my son's home from college. So it's just, you know, it is what it is. I would like to see maybe better signage on 140, because I feel I was unable to see that for a few days until people told me there was a sign. I didn't realize it. And then I looked for it and I said, oh, yeah, but it's not clearly visible to me. So I'm thinking maybe better signage would help. And I also think the occasional police presence will deter the Foxborough locals. And if that's mostly who's doing it, or people, you know, that live in Mansfield or whatever, and they, you know, figure out that they can cut off part of the center, I think it will help. What we do not want to see in my family is for any street to become one way. I think that would be a giant inconvenience. It would really be very aggravating to me and slow down my commute in the morning, getting out early in the morning, getting out, you know, to Route 95. I want to quickly take a right out of my street and avoid the center myself and go the fastest way I can to get to the highway or wherever it is I want to go. I don't want to be impeded by one-way streets and trying to figure things out. You know, if it had to be, you know, during the rush hour time, you know, I could live with that. But for the streets, I think there are 24 households within that area. For all of us to be trapped and not to be able to get out the direction that we want to go, I'm not willing to give up my freedom, you know, because of this, you know, irritating problem of people cutting through. So that's our piece. Did I forget anything, Mike? No. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So let me suggest this, and I think Mrs. Bradley had a lot of good points. It isn't a tight neighborhood. Unfortunately, it is right on 140. It is at a kind of a cog's neck of, you can't get through the center as fast as you want. So you're going to go to the right, or you're going to go to the left. You're going to come down Garfield or one of those.
Sure.
It's a fact of life that it's getting more congested. I'm not a big fan of one-ways, speed bumps. I don't like cars parked. I see the little flag man. Officer Hoffman, I've seen you out there a number of times. We can't keep putting officers sitting on one neighborhood and taking them away for other. I'm willing to say, let's keep the signs up. They're not the best.
Maybe they turn them 45 degrees or something.
Or they could be a little bigger. But my feeling is the people that are using that and seeing it, if they've done it once, they're going to do it twice. On the 3rd time, they're going to see the sign. So if you're going down that road, you know it's a no-through traffic. I was there when one of the neighbors was stopping somebody and saying, I know you, and I know you don't live here. People know that they shouldn't be going through there. If it's not enforceable, they've figured it out by now. Other than moving the house or making it a one-way, I'm not sure if there's a solution that the selectmen can offer tonight.
Well, I appreciate, we don't want to get into the design scenarios here, but I think by trying to address traffic on Fales Place, we're trying to put a Band-Aid on the situation. The real problem is the common. And I think that's only going to get worse. So I think we got to look at the bigger picture and see how we can get traffic to flow through the common more freely and not require people to seek alternate routes. I know that's probably more difficult to do, But that's the only way you're really gonna resolve this once and for all. You're gonna have to look at working on the common. Especially if we're, you know, we wanna develop the downtown area. Traffic's not gonna get better. So, I think we have to look maybe big picture.
If I could, for the board, I know that the planning board has already taken steps of gathering data about traffic flows into the common area. Gordon Green from the board gave me some information and shared with me some of the research that they've already done to try and figure out potential alternatives to better manage the flow of the cars that we have coming through, especially during peak hours, in light of future development of our downtown.
So the planning board's starting to look at that, or?
Yes, they
okay,
are.
all right.
Because there was 2 members that I met with, and so that is an issue that they're looking forward to working on.
Okay, very good. Anyone else on the board?
No, I mean,
So-
if the planning
so-
board, I mean, we should just kind of hold and see what happens.
Well,
Jim, I may mention one other thing too.
Sure.
Now that we've achieved the grant from Serped, that's 140 also, and there's no reason to stop at Bassett Street. They should go right up to the Rentham line when they do the study, since it involves Foxborough. Period.
So the Mass Highway jurisdiction goes right through the common?
It doesn't, but the numbered route goes right through
Right
the common.
okay.
And the planning agencies always plan a route.
Mhm.
They don't necessarily care if it's a state
State
highway or a local
jurisdiction.
road.
So, I mean, this might be a good topic for next Tuesday when we get together with the planning. The planning board's gonna be there, and the discussion is development around the common, so. Okay, anything else from the board?
There's some folks back here.
Sure. If, I'm gonna ask if you could just come up to the microphone.
Jerry Lazowski, 11 Fields Place.
Okay.
You had requested myself and Art Poirier to be at this meeting tonight.
Correct, yeah.
So what I would like to report is we have not noticed a whole lot of difference. We are noticing traffic now coming in both directions, both from 140 heading north and 140 heading south. In 1 month, I've seen almost 3 times a head-on collision at that 90-degree bend in our street.
Okay.
I think we do need to address this. It needs to be addressed soon before something tragic happens. We have 15 to 18 new children moved in on this street, all very young. We have no sidewalks. I believe, Mr. Hill, you had mentioned that the street was only 16 feet wide with this 90-degree bend in the street. So a couple thoughts that some of the neighbors have had, and I know a lot of people don't like one-way streets, but perhaps turning Fales Place into a one-way in one direction, Gilmore in a one-way in the opposite direction, or making Fales Place a dead end like it used to be many years ago. Another problem that we're having, speed on the street. Granted, they're not breaking the speed limit of 30. Our street shouldn't be 30. If we need to have a 10-mile-an-hour speed limit put on the street, you can't get to 30 miles an hour on our street. It's not long enough, I think, to get there, although I think we've seen some people approach that speed. The speed has to be addressed. We're the same speed limit as Oak Street. So I think this has to be addressed sooner than later.
I don't disagree that it needs to get addressed. I'm having a hard time finding out how to do that. And I'm not writing it off, but you know, it's very difficult to please all of the neighbors, and I know that for a fact on those neighborhoods, because a lot of people don't want it one ways. If there's ways to, you know, I'm going to put this back on you a little bit. If you can meet with the neighborhood and find out if there's a common consensus of what you would like there, because we can't have it at this table. We got to start somewhere.
We have met with the neighborhood. We have met with the neighbors on Fales Place and several people on Gilmore. They're pretty willing to go one way.
All right, so let me suggest this, maybe, and I don't know if there's somebody from this group that could sit with the neighbors or Roger and come up with some kind of a concept plan. We just don't have the time at this table, and
Yeah, I
it's
know.
certainly not tonight, but I sympathize and I know what you're saying. I don't have a solution, and I'm in the business of civil engineering and finding solutions. There's certain things we can't do because they're public roads. I don't know the history of when it used to be a one-way, but if the neighborhood, if you've had the longevity and you've lived there for 15, 20, 30 years, I think if there's consensus from the neighborhood and it gets to a point where you come and say, we've all met and this is our goals and objectives and this is what we can live with. What I don't want to do is start dividing neighborhoods, saying some people want one way, some want two ways. There's 4 cars on the street when there should only be 2 or something like that. It's not a selectman issue, it's more of a neighborhood, work it out and then come to us with a solution. We can certainly help you by loaning the DPW and the police along the way, but short of that, I'm not sure what we can do tonight on that.
Thank you.
So, I see one more gentleman in the back, Mr. Poirier. Would you like to? I didn't think you were coming tonight.
What?
Because your daughter said you weren't.
Well, she doesn't know where I go all the time. The question here is child safety.
Yes.
And it's a big question because there's a whole bunch of little kids on the street. I sit on my steps at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you've gone by, you know exactly what goes on.
Yep.
Some of the cars go by so fast you can't read the license plates.
Yeah.
My suggestion is make it one way from, say, 3 to 6. It would take that big rush of traffic that tries to get through the common. It would eliminate cutting through the neighborhood at that hours, during those hours. And those are the hours that are worst. They're the worst for us.
But I'm also hearing from 3 to 6, if you want to get to your house and you're 140, you can't go down your own road. You've got to go all the way with everybody else, go around the rotary and come back the other way.
I can go down Granite Street and take a right on Gilmore.
Okay.
And that's another question. Roger, what happened to the signs that you were going to put on Granite Street?
I only put the Gilmore and the Fields Place
I know.
sign. The Granite Street sign would have been kind of redundant.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But I never knew why they didn't get
Yeah.
put up.
I think we decided that when you were here at the last meeting, because to put no through on Granite, that's a mile long and that just keeps going. So how do you say no through, because you're going to be going for miles?
But I honestly think if you make it one way from 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, you'd take care of this problem.
So could you be the point person or somebody from the neighborhood get together, have a neighborhood group meeting, and invite one of us so we can sit in on it and get some consensus?
Sure.
Because and with all due, we just can't do it at this table. And,
No, I know. I know.
We're hearing too, but there might be 20 other people in the neighborhood that might disagree. I don't know.
We can get together.
Okay.
I'll volunteer.
That's not a problem.
if you
All
want.
right. We got a voluntold person. So
Voluntold.
Chris Mitchell.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Artie. All right. And thank you, guys. I'm sure that you'll be hearing from this topic again. Thank you. All right. I see Mr. Bill Caspera coming in from the previous National Grid public hearing. So if the representatives from National Grid could come to the table. The hearing was already opened and continued. So this is a earth removal permit. In our packet, we have site plans, correspondence. It's already gone through the planning board to some level. This design plans, full design plans, and we're only talking about the earth removal permit section of the design plans. So ask National Grid to introduce themselves and kind of give an overview of why you're here.
Sure.
And then we're going to ask our building inspector to give us some input as well.
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your time. For the record, my name is Joshua Lee Smith. I'm an attorney with law firm of Bowditch and Dewey, here tonight representing Massachusetts Electric Company, which does business as National Grid. As the chairman has indicated, we're here before the board this evening seeking the issuance of an earth removal permit. This is in connection with a project that involves the installation of what's called a MITS, which is a modular integrated transportable substation, a mobile substation at the site. The property is located off of Washington Street, which is State Highway Route 1, and is on property which is an approximately 50-acre site currently owned by FXP LLC. The company is looking to acquire a small portion of this 50-acre site in order to install this mobile substation. As the chairman has indicated, the company has already sought and obtained other Foxborough town-related permits, including a frontage variance from the ZBA and various permits and approvals from the planning board, including but not limited to an A&R endorsement in order to create the small lot on which this substation is going to be situated. So the company has obtained all of the permits required from the town, except this last permit in connection with the earth removal. So the earth removal permit requirement in this case is triggered by the fact that approximately 325 cubic yards of earth material is contemplated to be taken off the site in order to accommodate the grading work that's going to occur on the site and ultimately the MITS itself. So that's the jurisdictional trigger for the permit, and tonight we're hopeful that, or we're hoping and seeking the permit to be issued so that the company can commence work on the project, which they're looking to do, by the way, quite imminently. It's been somewhat of a long road to get to this point, not having anything to do with the town. The town has been most cooperative, including the staff and the other boards. But we're at the point where it's taken there's been a few bumps in the road with respect to closing the transaction, and at this point where we see the light, and this is the last hurdle.
So the property has been subdivided, and National Grid now owns that smaller parcel?
The formal closing has not yet occurred. There's a contingency in the purchase agreement with FXP, which includes the acquisition of this permit, of various permits, including the ones I described, including this earth removal permit. Once that happens, then we can close, and then we'll be looking to commence work.
FXP, that's a National Grid company?
No.
Okay.
It's Kraft Group affiliated entity.
So who's going to own the property?
The MEC will own the property. Mass Electric Company will own the substation site. Yes, it's about approximately 2.4 acre portion of the larger 50-acre site. The remainder of that site will continue to be owned by FXP.
More questions from the board?
What's that site now? Is it parking?
The majority of the site is undeveloped land. There is a road, or I shouldn't say road, it's a driveway, which is used as an access way to get to the existing town water, the water tower, which is located, that parcel is located to the south of the parcel that we are looking to acquire.
So with respect to the earth removal, I see from the site plans you'll be leveling it off, you'll be cutting 300-plus yards of material. From a contractor's perspective, you're going to dig it, and then where's it going to go? How's it going to go through the public properties to get where it needs to go?
Well, if at this time
Sure.
I might defer to the experts by way of introduction.
I'm Andy Ruby. I'm a substation's civil structural engineer.
If you could just use that microphone, that would be helpful.
I'm Andy Ruby. I'm substation civil structural engineer for National Grid. Regarding your question, sir, we haven't right now decided as to this job will be conducted by in-house crews or external contractor. But either way, we make it a point that any fill removed is dropped off at an authorized height and is typically either sold to a secondary party to use as fill. And that's usually how we handle the material.
Okay. But as far as the route going over public roads or public properties?
We'll be going down that water tower road. I don't know if it actually has a name to it. I don't think it does. We'll be going down the hill and then taking a right down Route 1, and then from wherever we go from there, your standard 18-wheeler type dump.
Okay, so there's no back roads, it's basically whatever that town.
There's one way in, one way out,
access
that's
is.
it, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Just while you're there, it's a quick question. I didn't understand this part. It says removal of approximately 325 cubic yards of soil from Lot B. The importation of clean fill is not anticipated, but if some or all material on the site cannot be used as structural fill, then as much as 735 cubic yards of clean fill will need to be imported, which is, if that's the case, you'd be importing more than you're taking out.
Yes, sir.
Just explain why, because I can't visualize it.
I brought a bigger version of what you guys are looking at. Because it's a virgin and undeveloped site, we can make some certain assumptions based on what's out there. It's probably typical loamy, rocky type soil you find all over New England, which is perfectly suitable to build on. But in case we find something out there that we can't use, for instance, a large amount of bedrock that's in our way, we may have to end up over-excavating that bedrock to make room for our foundations. We haven't done any soil testing, boring, test pits, or anything like that. But we know for a fact over here, there's a good amount of ledge right here. There's also a good amount of ledge right here. As you walk out this existing road over here, you can see it already. So we may be doing a little extra hammering than we would like to.
Okay.
Gravity the situation.
So then you have to take all that bedrock out, then bring it back up to grade with the imported fill?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Well, we will use what we can on site before we bring anything in. We try not to spend any more money than we have to.
Any other questions from the board?
Have you done a soil analysis as far as with an OSP?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Are you going to?
Soil analysis.
If you're exporting, you want to know. I mean, chances are because it's virgin, there's probably nothing in it.
Oh, we will test, yes, sir, before you took anything off site. That's been our policy.
Any other questions from the board?
All the other, like you said earlier, you have all the permits from every other board. We say yes, you guys start digging and start building, ready to go. Okay.
Verizon is already out there with their building right here. They've created this access drive right here. Our intention is to widen the existing one by about 6 feet.
This question has nothing to do with the topic, but why is it portable?
It's not actually portable. It's called a modular integrated transformer skid. So, is it roughly here? 3D rendering of what it looks like. It sits on roughly 8 piers. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4 on the backside. Drop it down, wire it in, turn it on, and
We'll never lose power again.
I knew someone was going to
ask. I'm not the electrical guy. I'm the civil guy.
But is this primarily because there's not enough capacity up in that area, and for any further development's going to need this for growth?
John, I can maybe speak to that a little bit.
John Skripczak from National Grid and project manager associated with this. This question was brought up at the last hearing. Basically, we're reaching capacity of the existing circuits that are in Foxborough right now in this area. This is going in as a relief to those circuits right now. So it is going to increase reliability and capacity for load growth in the future.
And this will be for the whole town?
Correct.
For the whole area?
Thank you. So Bill Kisber, our building inspector, is here. Bill, I don't know if you wanted to add. I know we spoke earlier about one recommendation that was from our town engineer that may or may not be relevant to this right now.
Correct. The original letter that I submitted to you stated that after consultation with town engineer and DPW director, that the access road that was shown on the previous page there, that it be repaved. National Grid has agreed to do any repairs from damage. At this time, My understanding is what you're looking at here with this MITS is phase one. Phase two, which may happen 3 to 5 years down the road, is a full-blown substation. Now these MITs are now currently being installed. There's one on Neponset Ave near Schneider Electric, and they're doing one across from Elm Street as well. It's all part of the Union Grid upgrades, Union Loop. So this is part of that. This will provide a better, reliable service on Route 1. So as far as the next phase would go, that's when we would address the repaving of the access road.
Okay. Okay. So even though the recommendation is now, it's more for phase two if and when it comes?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So the purview of this board is the earth removal. So the questions, is the site balanced? Are we taking it off to sell it? Are we, from the site plan perspective, they're leveling the site, the export is needed to put the base, nothing more, nothing less, and it's a pretty routine process.
It is, the board granted an earth removal permit last spring for the employee parking lot on Washington Street. This is very similar to it.
Okay.
They just can't take any loam out of town. That there's no relief from that.
Yeah.
But there's no loam up there. It's just earth removal.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Where this is a...
I just said, you talked about the secondary phase down the road, maybe 4 or 5 years. Would that be in the same location, or would it be in addition to?
It's a conceptual idea right now, so it's conceptual planning. I can't answer that at this point.
Although, I think what you're asking is, will this structure remain, or will it be replaced?
Right.
It would most likely be replaced.
Replaced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never dealt with so many lawyers in my life on this project, so I'm getting all different types of information.
And the
but-
road would be adequate for?
Yes.
Okay, before we close the public hearing, where this is a public hearing, is there anyone from the audience that would have any input, questions, concerns?
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
before we open it up to the public, there are a couple of waivers that we had requested to the extent that it's necessary.
Okay.
Just based on the bylaw, the way it's written, the two waivers that we had requested, one pertains to an easement, and I think it's described as an access easement, allowing the town to enter the site. We requested a waiver from this requirement, given the secure nature of the substation. No personnel except for MEC and authorized contractors are allowed to enter the site unless it's escorted. So the company does not grant easements for that purpose. So we would be requesting a waiver from that requirement. And the loam issue, as Mr. Gaspara indicated, there's a provision that indicates no loam can be removed, taken out of the town. I believe in speaking with the Board of Selectmen clerk, it was indicated to me that so long as the director of DPW indicated that his department wasn't interested in taking any of that loam, that condition is also waivable. Now, our engineer, I'm not sure whether there is any loam, in fact, on the site. So
I sort of define loam as that first 4 or 6 inches of earth that's all decomposed leaves and pine needles and stuff. It's rich in organic material that could be used to plant stuff in. And that was my definition of loam. And whether or not the town engineer wants it, if he wants it, then we'll tell him when we're trucking it off. We'll give you guys a call. If you guys want to bring it to you. We can do something like that. Otherwise, we'll dispose of it usually.
Okay.
Bill, can you remind us why that right-of-way is in the earth removal bylaw?
The easement?
Easement.
No.
Okay.
No, I
Just
can't.
wondering why it's important.
Yeah, I don't, and I also, from my understanding was there was no waiver that could be granted for the removal of loam out of town. Just just the way the bylaw, there shall be no removal of loam out of town. It was clear, and in the past, boards have not granted waivers for that. They felt that they couldn't grant a waiver, whether they could or not. That's the position they took. The easement is, I believe, they're referring to this right-of-way access easement. This is where the water tower is.
Mhm.
So this is the road that comes up and serves this. So they will be using this easement here. And then, as the gentleman pointed out, this road is being constructed now to service, this is a non-manned Verizon switching building. They're gonna expand this to 18 feet, I believe.
Yeah, roughly 18 feet, we're bumping up roughly another 6 feet or so.
Yeah,
Now.
to service that building. As far as the easement goes, it's just approval, like, just to use that road.
So what would happen if we waived that component?
If you waived it or just allowed the use.
Well, he's asking for us to waive that provision.
Just as a point of clarification, as I'm looking at the bylaw itself, I think the intent involves the town having the right to go into the site to the extent that the company fails in its obligations to restore the site. I can read a portion of the bylaw. It says, well, let me read all of it. No permit shall be issued until the owner of the site has granted to the town an easement over the land in question and conveys to the town the legal right to enter upon said land with equipment and personnel for the purpose of making acceptable restoration in accordance with the approved restorations plan in the event of default of such restoration specified in the permit by the owner of or his contractor, contractual representative. So I take that to read to mean that
Right of access onto the.
Right, it's not the road accessing the parcel, it's the town
Right
coming
of
in
entry.
because Grid all of a sudden decides, I don't want to do this project, or I don't want to grade it to the level that we indicated we're going to grade it. And then the town says, well, you're in default of your obligations pursuant to this permit that was granted. And so now I'm going to come in and perform restoration activities.
But it looks like you're only, the town's only granting an easement or access, or you're only granting an easement or access to that property until all parties are satisfied that the work's been done properly.
Temporary
At which
easement.
time, you could just go away.
Yeah, and our building commissioner
That's
needs
the way I
to
view
be
it.
able to
You're
go up there
It
to
just-
inspect the work
yeah.
too.
Can we, I take issue with the term easement, which, being the lawyer here, I have to say an easement for the civil folks in the room means something different than just having a condition that says to the extent that the obligations set forth in this permit are not satisfied, or the company defaults in its obligations, that the town may, with authorized escort, enter the site.
It's a right of entry is what it is.
Yes. So let me suggest this,
Right,
because
but-
if that, and I understand what you're saying, an easement is in perpetuity, so I think the way this is intended is if you don't follow your obligations on the earth removal permit, then the town, through its opportunities to go in and fix it on your behalf. That's a zoning bylaw that I'm not comfortable waiving that tonight. If you want to, it sounds like we're comfortable with this. We can go towards the approval without any waivers, or you can pull it back, try to come back with us with some clarifications or something that we can feel comfortable with, but I'm not comfortable waiving anything on our zoning bylaw tonight. We've dealt with the topsoil, and you're right, it's the rich material that you take off. People think topsoil is very valuable. The DPW most likely does not want it unless it's all screened, and you can do that
Right,
for it.
exactly,
So
right.
chances are, we're not going to take it.
Roger's here whether
Yeah,
you want
we've been down this road before.
I'm sure.
But the intent of that is so people aren't stripping large tracts of land, sending it over to a different town, and over time, our town is depleted of topsoil. So that's another waiver. In other words, sell it someplace in town, dump it someplace in town, but as long as it doesn't leave the town limits, I think we're okay.
You okay with that?
There's a process for violations and penalties of this bylaw too, which is enforceable by the town manager, the building commissioner, and the chief of police. So we have enforcement powers through court on this.
Yeah, and
in
that's the
fact, it's
intent
fulfilled.
of, that was the intent of the bylaw.
Yes.
Because
Yeah, that
soil
cha-
was leaving town.
Yeah, that
So
changed
that
a
was
little bit.
purposely written to keep it in town.
Roger, you wanted
many
to
years
talk about
ago.
that?
No, I didn't want to complicate the issue, but the underlying property, except for the property that's being acquired by National Grid, is property owned by the Kraft organization or one of its subsidiaries. Immediately adjacent to the site is the reuse tank site, and we own in fee that site. But that roadway is on Kraft property, and an easement to the roadway can only be granted by the subservient party to the easement, which is the Kraft property. The town of Foxborough only has a right of entry on it. That's all we have, and it's an access easement for
Yeah,
us.
so
and
I think unfortunately the terminology
Yeah,
is easement with meets and bounds.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
in practical, we're
What
not
I
asking
think,
for
what
that.
I think they really need, I think the town needs a temporary right of entry until completion of the project.
Exactly.
And that's really all you need.
You know, before you pour the pad and set down the equipment, we're just gonna come in and just say, looks good to us.
Yep.
Be good to go.
But is that a condition that would be imposed by the planning board?
Yes.
Yes.
And the zoning board.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's what they need.
Yeah.
And that doesn't require us to be an owner, and that's fine, that would be fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
That easement had to be in place before they brought the equipment in. So right of entry on there, you can do it, sure.
Okay. All right, so again, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the audience? I don't see anybody. Further discussion from the board before we look, I'm sorry, any further things to add?
I think we're set on the loam. With respect to this easement, it's not entirely clear as to how we're gonna handle this at this point. Is the condition going to indicate that, I'm not sure who the enforcement officer would be. Would it be the building commissioner or some
Town
other?
manager or the chief of police. That's how what's written in the bylaw.
Town manager?
Next page. 15,
Oh, okay, yeah.
15, 6A. B.
I've heard all the debate tonight, so I think the intent is pretty clear in my opinion.
Yeah.
So where it's a public hearing, once we close the hearing, we can't take any new information. We'll close it, we'll deliberate, and then we'll vote. So before we close the public hearing, any more discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion to.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made, seconded, further discussion on closing it? All those in favor? All right, motion carries 5-0. Deliberation amongst the board.
Jim, if we were to modify the language that's in front of us and say that it's a temporary access to the property to determine if the soil removal is done appropriately and it's leveled, and if there's anything that's been imported properly and that the loom didn't leave town, at which point they could pour a pad and bring in the equipment, and all of that would go away, leaving the easement on that roadway. Bill, is that something that's ever been done, or is that, well, let me ask another question. If we were to go down that road, would this have to go back through the planning board and other boards to then take it back to us?
No, because I don't believe any of those decisions had a condition, there was conditioned upon the earth removal permit. They're standalone decisions.
Okay.
No.
So if we entertain adding a condition that describes A, B, and C that we want to add to it, it still doesn't eliminate the fact that there's language in there that says easement. We can add to it, but unless we formally give them a variance from any of the requirements.
Well, easement
there.
in this case means, in my mind, temporary access.
Mhm.
So if we can just change the language to temporary access until such times either the town manager or the building commissioner or whoever is involved say and signs off on it, and then that goes away.
I'm agreeing with
So how do
you,
we
you can
write
do
it?
that, but you would have to formally give them a variance to vary from what the rules are, and then you can add the conditions. So you can't do one without the other.
That's why I asked Bill, does it have to go back to somebody else to bring that back to us?
I don't believe so,
Okay.
because that's not a matter of zoning, so the board wouldn't.
Okay,
zoning
so
board
we can
wouldn't-
create a variance here if we want.
Or a waiver, however you wanted to do it.
Okay.
Waive that requirement.
Well, I don't want to waive the requirement
No.
entirely. I want to waive the requirement until you're satisfied that the property meets the drawings and the conditions that you've agreed to.
I think the term variance is actually very good, because you're varying from what is stated, and you're providing access at the same time. That's really the goal here, is that correct?
But does the Board of Selectmen have the power to do that, or is that?
Well, it's your bylaw, right?
I
This
think
is under
Bill's
the earth
correct.
removal
That we
bylaw?
can-
Removal bylaw. I don't know if any other board could do that.
Because if we can come up with a language on something like that, I think we're done. Just that I think we just want to clarify it, because I think the town still does have an obligation to go onto the property and sign off on the project before they bring in the equipment and finish their project.
Can I, Bill,
We're fine with that.
you've had to have dealt with hundreds of these in your,
Not like this one. And no disrespect to Josh, I probably dealt with 12 to 16 attorneys on this one, and every one of them was charged to do one specific microscope
okay.
on the project. So we worked through it the best we could in what we thought was the legal way, proper way to do it, and getting through all the different boards.
Okay.
Sometimes you can throw up too many obstacles that really don't exist.
Yeah.
And I think this is the case.
So if what you're saying is true, and National Grid has had attorneys look at this, and
Not just National Grid.
everybody, okay.
Everybody.
So in that respect, I'm very apprehensive to give a waiver unless our council have looked at this. I just don't see the need, other than what if, worst case, they don't do, and then someone calls it an easement, and it's gonna be in perpetuity for, it hasn't been brought up before, it hasn't been the case.
No, I haven't done.
Granted, this is something that is a little unique, but that's gonna be built after the earth removal issue goes away and the permit's issued, and there's an inspection, and what's done, according to the site plan, is done, then they build that. So, you know, if we're gonna go through a waiver tonight and trying to put language together that makes sense, when the attorneys, you know, I'm not supportive of that for this particular case.
A suggestion, Mr. Chairman, is that the process goes as written, and then when the project is complete, you come back and request the removal of the variance, of the easement, at that point, because we wouldn't have a need for it. Is that acceptable?
Pretty good mechanics.
Yeah.
We're fine with that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Do we have a motion in the affirmative?
Make a motion, we approve the earth removal permit for National Grid on 324 Washington Street.
You want to put a caveat on that?
Like,
That there's an understanding that they will come back to the Board of Selectmen and ask for the
I don't think
removal
we
of the
need to,
easement.
do
at
we?
some-
Yeah, I would.
I'm sorry.
I
Okay.
don't, I mean,
Would that require us to come back as part of a public hearing, or can that be done administratively through either Mr. Gaspara or one of the enforcing
They could write a letter to you, the board
tran-
could approve it at a meeting, potentially.
Again, I think it's their interpretation that they need to.
yeah, I
We're not
mean, I
gonna
don't think
require
we
them.
need to put it in our motion.
I think once the earth is done and it's done, it goes away. If they think it
Oh.
is gonna stay in perpetuity, then I think your council would have to send us a
Sure.
letter saying we have an issue with this and how do we address it, but as far as this bird's concerned, it's not an issue. So,
Okay. I'll second that.
okay, so the motion was made to approve the application as submitted, seconded. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. A little painful, but I think you got what you want, and I don't think it's
We
going to be
did.
an issue.
We did, and I'd like to just thank the members of the board, and again, all of the staff of the town, been more than cooperative. And I hope I'm not too much of a pain. I know you're sick.
No, you weren't.
So I appreciate you showing up.
That's why he lost his voice, you know, like all those attorneys.
I feel you sound like a pony. Your throat's a little
Yeah, I'm not
hoarse.
feeling that crisp,
Okay.
That's my
but I'm here.
It's the flu shot.
We'll
right?
try and keep you
So,
here
yeah,
for
it's
another
Flu
hour.
shot. Get a flu shot.
Thank you, gentlemen, I
Never get
appreciate it.
them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good
You
night.
got a flu shot, and that's what it did to you?
That's what my wife said, go get a flu shot, so you don't get a cold.
All right, we'll try to make this one a little quicker. So the discussion on the wireless antenna on the utility poles, there's information in our packet complete with
Yeah, that's fine.
pole numbers, pictures, background information. What is being proposed is on existing poles to put apparatus on the outside, a little high. They're all dimensioned in there.
Yeah.
And there's also some excerpts from the state law giving them the ability to do this. So, is there anybody here from, where are we on this?
Verizon Wireless?
Verizon Wireless?
Hi, yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Daniel Klazik, I'm an attorney for Verizon Wireless. I have a call.
Great. I'll try to reach you today. I didn't call
I
you.
did get your
Oh, okay.
voicemail, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
sure.
Okay, so this is not a public hearing, but we do have information in front of us. So, again, if you could just state your name and
Yes, my
give a
name is,
presentation.
excuse me, my name is Daniel Klasnik, I'm the attorney for Verizon Wireless.
Okay. Could you give an overview of what the application
Oh,
is?
absolutely.
Sure.
I do have a set of plans that you may or may not have. I think it's representative and it's sometimes helpful just to, you already have a set? Okay, the one that I'm looking at in particular is for Bradford Avenue. And just by way of background, what Verizon Wireless is faced with is an abundance of network demand. I mean, it's a good place to be, obviously, where you have customers who are demanding your product, and their product is the waves, basically, that allow people to communicate. As the continuing demand, capacity, and otherwise coverage continues to inundate Verizon Wireless's network, it's continuing to come up with flexible, hopeful solutions that will allow it to continue to satisfy the customer requirements. So in this particular instance, what we're looking at is a what's called a small cell deployment. That's a very limited type of facility, a limited amount of equipment, as opposed to what is a macro site. So Verizon Wireless would have a number of macro sites which have beefier antennas with more radio equipment that allow them to operate. But what they've found over time is these simply aren't adequate to meet the demand on the network. So they've come up with this, and we've gone forward in other communities, and I think it's a really good and interesting approach to address a very difficult problem. So the facility itself consists of utilizing existing infrastructure, the utility poles, basically. So Verizon Wireless has already entered into a license agreement with National Grid to attach onto various utility poles, or they have what they call the pre-licensing phase, where they've made the necessary filings and they're still in process by National Grid. So before doing any work as required, we would certainly enter into an agreement with the owner of the pole. To the extent that the locations are in the town right-of-way, what we've found in other communities is that it's helpful, and I think the reason that Verizon Wireless's representative perhaps stopped by was it's typically something that's handled fairly informally, where a party is designated in the town that we send notice that it's a particular location that we're interested in the right-of-way. And in some communities, they've looked at perhaps that you need to have an electrical permit to continue the work. So if to the extent it's in a town right-of-way, we would follow the process similar to that, hopefully, that would allow us to contract with a Verizon Wireless recognized vendor to go out and actually perform the work. Typically, it's just a bucket truck or something like that that allows them to access the utility pole and put their small antenna. It's really just a 2-foot cylindrical type of antenna. There's some additional equipment that's also attached to the utility pole. There's absolutely no ground equipment and no groundwork or ground disturbance within any of the areas. It's really something that's utilizing the existing infrastructure. There's a fiber run that goes back to what we call a central hub, and in that central hub, in this particular instance, that hasn't been identified, but that's where the actual radio equipment, the switching equipment would be to allow it to connect back into the network. So the idea is, as I had said, to try and deal with capacity in a way that's as least impactful as possible by utilizing infrastructure. We would also put these in the state right-of-way, going through the state process. To the extent they're in a town right-of-way, we would certainly appreciate guidance from this board as to how best to proceed.
Very good, thank you, appreciate that. Before I go to the board for questions, Bill Caspera, do you want any further insight into this, or?
Well, the reason I wanted to bring it to the board's attention was over the past month, 2 months, we've received several inquiries from different vendors to do this. So it must be a technology that they're reaching out to different communities to do. And I checked with different communities that have been approached by these companies, and because they were in the right-of-ways, they went to the selectmen just for an approval to be able to do that, an acknowledgement, basically what it is. My understanding from reading statute, which I included in your packet, is whoever owns the pole is considered the utility, and they can't deny this from these antennas from going up if it's a dead area, unless there's a significant safety or engineering issue with it, and then they have to provide an alternative. I don't know if the town owns, how many of these poles the town owns. Most of them, from what I understand, would be owned by Verizon, so they would have the agreement with
National Grid. Yeah, all the locations that have been identified thus far are National Grid locations.
Yeah.
And basically what Verizon Wireless has done is they've entered into what they call a master agreement with National Grid. So throughout the state where there are National Grid utility poles, they will enter into an attachment license. And as has already been instructed, they have to, by state law, as required also by federal law, is to grant non-discriminatory access to any wireless service provider who wants to attach to these particular locations. It's simply viewed as a good use, not unlike anyone else, a cable provider or whomever else may need to utilize the existing infrastructure.
Existing infrastructure, meaning the utility pole that's there now?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's basically just for your information, this is what's been proposed, or what will be proposed, and these bucket trucks will be going down the roads, so that's what they'll be doing.
But in your last paragraph, you said that we should probably consider a lease agreement with the provider for those antennas on public.
If we own the poles, yeah, if we own some certain poles.
But as of right now, you've not identified that any of these are going on a public utility pole.
Not from this, but there are other interested parties out there that may, in fact.
From the looks of this technology, it looks like it's something that's going to expand rapidly.
Yeah. It's been going on a lot of towns.
By putting that there, is this just for an FYI to us, or is it something we should be dealing with straight away?
It's an FYI.
FYI, okay.
Further questions from the board?
So this is, you're the attorney for Verizon.
I am.
So if Sprint wanted to do this and every other one, I mean, is it conceivable they're all gonna go on the same pole, or are they gonna be spread out further through town?
Just conceptually, I mean, it's really a determination that's going to be made by the National Grid or the utility provider as to what type of equipment each particular pole will support. So to the extent that it would support multiple facilities, then they would be in a position to license that.
Okay.
So potentially this technologies on a pole could be shared by different companies?
The location, this is a specific proposal as it relates to Verizon Wireless's licensed FCC frequencies in its network. So it's not a shared but I thought we were discussing the actual physical utility pole itself.
Yep. We're just looking down the road.
No, of course.
So it's interesting to note that Sprint and T-Mobile and any of those other carriers, they do not own poles, to my knowledge. So they would have to sublease from Verizon in this case?
No, Verizon Wireless only has a license with Ngrid, so Ngrid's it's still their utility pole. We're just licensing space on it, similar to, you know, a cable provider or whomever else is utilizing what they've already built out.
That's what the other providers would have to do.
So, Bill, when you write that we, as a board, have jurisdiction over the poles because for the fact that they're in the right-of-way.
Right.
Again, this is for our information only tonight?
Yes.
So if we were offended or wanted to say no or say yes or whatever, it's really irrelevant with respect to, because they're not our pole. If they were our pole, which we do have some poles in the right-of-way, but
Right, but on
if it's
these,
a
you
national
know,
grid pole.
Right, and I gave you the statute there, Chapter 166, and there's also, as this gentleman pointed out, the Federal Telecommunications Act, so it's really regulated on what a utility can and can't do. So it's an FYI, this presentation.
I suppose it's conceivable, too, that if you truly became a nuisance within the right-of-way, by doing this kind of work, that you might have some ability to regulate that to a degree, potentially.
I guess so. I mean, define nuisance. I mean, if you've got 6 providers on a pole, aesthetically, it's.
Well, say if
suddenly
suddenly you had 12 trucks lined up on one street.
Yeah.
Doing the work all at once. I suppose that could be a problem.
Well, you have electrical code issues too, because each one of those would require separate service. So that may not be feasible to do that, have a lot of carriers on it, without having equipment cabinet, rather than just a service on the pole, so.
Okay. So I gotta confess, this isn't, I don't think any of our board's forte or expertise on poles.
Yeah.
So other than, you know, thanking you for the information and taking it under advisement, I don't know what we're obligated or our rights or responsibilities are at this point. So I would suggest to the board, let's take it under advisement, and I hate to ask you to follow up, but could you guys work to see if we're going in a direction that, should we go in a different direction, or should we be paying more attention to this, I guess?
There may be a point where where these want to be put on town-owned structures.
Right.
And then in that case, then it would be an agreement with us.
A monetary agreement?
Yeah.
Okay. My question is, right now, we're dealing with national grid poles. Okay? And it was my understanding that down the road, we may be purchasing national grid poles?
No, the lights. The lights.
The lights, but not the poles.
Not the poles, no.
Okay, all right.
It's a new technology, it's developing, things are going to be.
Well, my question was, what
No,
happens when
fair
ownership
question.
changes? But it's not the pole, it's the lights. Okay.
The arm that comes off. the
Yep.
light. So this is primarily informational because it's brand new stuff. If we start seeing people up and down the street doing this, it's good for the public to hear too, that they may see these new things pop up on top of these poles. People may wonder what those
What they are.
So this is more informational for everyone.
So if I could ask you, as counsel for Verizon, the experience that you've had with other communities that you go into with this information, are you asking for approval or
Well,
FYI?
what we've found is that, you know, we certainly want to work cooperatively, obviously, with every community we go into. We're endeavoring to provide an important service, I think. So what we've found in other communities is that to the extent it is going in a town right-of-way, a person has been designated, we will send them just notice to make them aware that we're going to be doing this work. You know, there's a police detail that's obviously involved, you know, and to make certain that while the bucket truck is there, so that would be coordinated, I guess, through the town engineer or the police department or whomever. So I guess what would be best or most helpful for us is just to know who we would be contacting. That would be
My recommendation would be the building commissioner, primarily because of if anything, there may be a permit required for electrical work.
There would be, because it's a service.
Yes, they're clearly adding a service
Right.
to the, a meter.
So that'd be fine. Contact our office.
Anything else from the board? Okay. Thank you very much for your
No,
time, I
thank
appreciate
you.
it, for the information.
Everyone have a good evening.
You too. So our Foxborough Housing Authority appointment is going to be rescheduled. So if we can ask Randy Scollins, our financial department, to discuss the basically refinancing of the bonds. Bill, thank you for coming. I know you're under the weather. Appreciate it. Good evening.
Good evening. This should be some easy lifting after all that heavy lifting I've seen you do. So here to ask the board's vote to allow the town to basically do a refinancing. It's a different term when it relates to municipal bonds. It's a refunding, but for the ease of everybody's understanding, we'll just call it a refinancing. The interest rate environment has created another opportunity for Foxborough to refinance some of its bonds. 3.5 years ago, some of you may remember, we refinanced about $5.4 million of bonds and saved $713,000 in interest. 5 of our bonds are now eligible to be refinanced, new bonds, not the ones that we had refinanced before. They total about $8.66 million. 20-year bonds aren't able to be refinanced or called until after 10 years. So that's why this opportunity is now presenting itself. We have 5 bonds that are now ready to be refinanced if the interest rate environment is right, or about to be ready to be refinanced, so within a 12-month window. Just for informational purposes, they happen to be the Ahern renovation bond, 2 public safety building bonds, 1 small high school gas conversion bond, and a sewer bond. It's also a small one. The estimated interest savings on these is about a little under $800,000, and it's over 10 years that savings would be realized. All of the debt is excluded debt, so above and beyond 2.5, except for just $100,000 on sewer debt. So $8.56 million of this refinancing is excluded debt. So that would result in direct taxpayer savings, or for just about all of this. And in order to proceed with the process, just to offer the bonds for refinancing, what's required is the board's approval just to go forward with that. And if the board votes to do that, we'll continue to prepare the offering prospectus. We'll conduct a sale, at which point we would come back here to the board, tentatively scheduled for December 1st, and ask for the boards to consider accepting the low bid or reject it. There's no, by voting tonight, there's no obligation that we have to refinance the bonds, but I think the interest rate environment is ripe, and we don't think it's going to change between now and November 19th, which is when we would have the sale, and again, it would be direct taxpayer savings.
Randy, given that these are a 20-year bond and they say they passed their 10-year threshold, are these going to be rescheduled as the remaining years, or are they going to go back out to be 20?
No, just the remaining years. So that's part of the beauty of refinancing or refunding a 20-year bond, is because a 20-year bond coupon is a higher interest rate, but a shorter-term bond, like a 10-year bond, obviously is a lower interest rate. So, and typically when these bonds go out, they're lower coupons earlier on interest rates and then higher coupons later on. So we're looking at mostly 3.75 and 4% coupons at this point in time on the remaining bonds. So a 10-year bond is likely going to attract something closer to 2%. And so that's the savings. I mean, I estimated if the savings here comes in as we expect, it's basically about a 40% savings on the interest that we pay on these bonds.
the bond market's pretty soft. Is there an appetite for the market to absorb these?
There is.
Okay.
There is. As a matter of fact, we're one of literally dozens of communities that are being herded to the marketplace to take advantage for as long as this opportunity lasts. If the market were to remain at this low level, we might come back again in 2 to 3 years when some other maturities get to get to that 10-year mark, which would be the high school, library after that, and then we have 2 water treatment plants. But those are very competitive rates. I doubt there'll be any savings at that point. But I'm not expecting the rates to stay this low for the next 3 or 5 years.
No, this is fabulous.
So Randy, on the letter from First Southwest to you and to Lisa, it says barring authorization process. You expecting a majority vote tonight with this language to go forward?
Yes, just to go forward, just to authorize us to put together the offering prospectus, and we can't go forward without that, without the board's authority, because you can only refinance your bonds once. It's a one-shot deal. You can either choose to refinance them or not, or wait longer. We believe this is a perfect time. The window's finally come again. But we would come back with the bid results to the board.
That would be the second vote once we get them in December 1st.
Exactly. And you could accept or reject.
Okay. More discussion from the board?
It's definitely worth a straightforward initiative as you can find.
There's a recommended form of vote on the letter from First Southwest towards the bottom.
And Bill, I'm assuming you've been consulted throughout this process, and
Absolutely.
you're on board with this?
Yeah, I'm fully supportive, actually. It's actually a good thing for the residents and for the community.
Okay.
It goes right to the taxpayer.
That's right.
She said over the next 10 years, it's an $80,000 savings.
About 800,000.
Or 80,000 a year.
Right. Depending upon how it's amortized. On average, I figured out what's the average impact per the average residential taxpayer. It's about $11 a year per taxpayer on for the average home value. Mileage will vary.
Jim, I'm going to make a motion, okay? I move on behalf of the Board of Selectmen that in order to save interest costs, the treasurer is authorized to provide for the sale and issuance of bonds under General Law, Chapter 44, Section 21A, to refund all or any portion of the remaining principal of and redemption premium and interest on the town's general obligation bonds dated June 15th, 2005 and August 15th, 2006, and that for this purpose, the treasurer is authorized to provide for the preparation and distribution of a preliminary official statement, provided, however, that no bonds shall be issued under this vote unless and until the final interest rates and other terms of the refunding bonds are approved by the board.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
See you
Thank
in
you.
December.
See you December
Pardon?
1st.
Yeah. Good luck.
It should be a good early Christmas present for us.
Thank you.
Right, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks, Randy.
Thanks, Fran.
Community compact discussion, Mr. Keegan.
Yes, the board will recall that this was brought up at the last meeting. Selectman Capola had actually been at the meeting with the Lieutenant Governor when this was rolled out as part of the discussion with the Mass Selectmen's Association meeting. We've actually been engaged in this discussion prior to that with Lieutenant Governor's office as well as members of the staff to try and identify some of the best practices that we might want to pursue. So we thought what we would do tonight is just more or less give you a summary of all the documents that we received so far, and on top of that, identify some of the practices that we thought might be worth pursuing as part of this compact agreement. And those are highlighted with the in the yellow in the document that has the community compact best practice of Foxborough. And there could be more because it's actually a whole list of areas that we can focus on. They're really highlighted in education, energy and environment, financial management, housing and economic development, the information technology, regionalization, transportation, and citizen safety. And I think that's it. So those are the main categories. And what this is an executive order that was, it was actually the first executive order put into place by the Baker administration to show its commitment to cities and towns across the Commonwealth, identifying that they intend to support the cities and towns on a multi-level basis. And this is an opportunity to share resources at the state level with local communities, and also to identify some of the best practices that are already in existence throughout the Commonwealth, and to share them back with the state, so then they can serve as a resource to other communities across the Commonwealth. So we, some of the communities in this area have already joined, Mansfield being one of them. We'd like to become part of this sooner rather than later, because I think the sooner you can become part of it, the more you can become active in receiving potential grant funds. So we want to be involved in it as soon as we can. So I guess the question is, we've identified several areas that we think are areas worth pursuing. If you have additional ones, or if you think we've missed it on selecting one of these few, feel free to tell us so. But I think this is just where we're at this point in time. So we want to get your input on that.
Bill, just a few questions on the mechanics of this.
Sure.
I read through it, and there's money involved.
Right.
And I was wondering, and I think it's noble, but why does one have to enter into a compact to participate with taxpayer money and best practices that other communities may have developed, and that's sort of being herded by the state? What are we giving up to get?
Well, we're not giving up anything per se, and I say that knowing full well there may be something that I just haven't identified with, but what I believe this is that there was only so much of so many grant dollars available that are available throughout the state, and this is one way of competitively getting people involved so that we can actually get involved in possibly getting some of that money. There is a number of communities that may not choose to participate at all. They just say, we're not going to do that. We're good on our own. We'll stay out of it. But we have a lot of good practices here that we could share, as well as we'd like to gain from, especially when it comes to things such as economic development and technology, where we're starting to really do some really good things and starting to reach out to the community on different levels now. So I think that the extent that we can gain from the knowledge that's already out there and some of the practices that are in place, why should we reinvent the wheel? I mean, I think that's really.
But by reading this, it said that you will engage in one project.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're looking at this list, I would say technology is a project we ought to dive into, and we could learn a lot from other communities.
Mm-hmm. I think as I read that, it could be at least one project.
At least one, right.
Yeah, so we could do others if you wanted to.
But it's a matter of autonomy, and I'm a little bit nervous of the state growing some teeth and telling us what to do versus us exploring and pulling in those things which I think are beneficial to the town.
Well, I've never heard that they, in fact, in the conversations we've had with the Lieutenant Governor and the director of this program at the local level, he was actually a deputy town administrator himself in Brookline. He's very careful to point out that they're not looking to dictate anything to us. They're just trying to be helpful to us and provide some guidance and some direction.
Well, that was my original question. So what's the need for a compact? Can't they be helpful to us without signing a document?
Well, I think the issue is if we didn't have the compact, then we wouldn't be able to be eligible to participate in the grant programs that they have.
Okay, so let's look at it this way. By signing a compact, we're applying for a grant.
Yes.
Can we look at it that way?
Effectively.
Okay.
Right, and also, it's my understanding the compact is only for 2 years.
Right.
And it can be renewed.
Right.
So you're only really obligated for a 2-year period, and if we find that it's not working out or it's not worth it, we don't have to.
There's no obligation beyond that. I liken it to a similar program that was popular with the Patrick administration previously, where they had a ranking system that you would have to follow in terms of best practices in your community. I was dealing with affordable housing, dealing with open space, or dealing with planning, master planning, and they would rank your community accordingly. And the higher you came in that ranking process, you were able to, you know, be very competitive when it came to, you know, these types of grants. So, this is just a different approach. That's all it is.
Okay. No, I just, you know, sometimes the hair on the back of your neck goes up when you see these things and say, I just don't want to relinquish autonomy.
Understood.
And, you know, we see a lot of these things where the state has overridden our local laws with 40Bs, et cetera, so I just wanted to make sure this isn't, you know, another creep
I
where
don't-
all
I
of a
don't
sudden
read-
they tell us what to do.
I don't read it like that.
Okay.
In your memo to us, you said the staff met and went over the list. Did you include the schools on that? Because I see this.
I did
definitely in
not at the
education.
time, because when we first met it, when we first read it, we thought it was primarily engaged with just the town side of government, but then we found out later it was education-based as well. So we can do that.
I mean, yeah, I would think at least talk with the schools to see. And then the only other one that I noticed that, the energy and environment, just with, maybe looking into some of those.
Hey, Jim?
Thank you, Randy.
Actually went on to the Community Compact website. It's actually very informative. It's a map of the state, and you can click on each community and see which communities have, you know, committed what. And I think I can press the easy button here for at least one item. I believe it was Canton had committed to develop formalized financial policies. And that's their one item, I believe. So we're going to be doing that.
We're doing that already.
So, you know, please feel free to use that as part of your entry into this grant program.
Great.
Perfect, thank you. Is there a, I mean, looking at the list of, shopping list of the things you could go into, or, yeah, go towards, so the housing infrastructure, competitiveness, job creation, retention, information technologies. Are we spreading it too thin? Can we focus on one or two?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
really focus
Yeah,
on
we
it?
really could.
Or is there a benefit of picking more?
These are the ones that sort of caught our eye of things
Yeah.
that were most, you know, most comparable to our community at this point in terms of what our needs are. I think the question then becomes, what do you see as the most driving issue that we should focus on right now? We can always have a couple later on that we can focus on later, but.
No, I looked at the list and I said, you know, which ones are foundational issues? Randy, thank you for pointing that out, because that is a foundational issue. But I also thought that technology and getting our arms around that in place would be, set that foundation, and everything else will build off of that. But I think until that's in place, and I'll go with you on the financial policies, if they're written and ready to go, embrace them.
Well, the technology one actually cuts right across the schools as well, because we work already.
Yeah, but I mean, it's one of these things that I think we've been recognizing it for years, but just we've been unable to really tackle it. And if this is coaching and guidance and best practices with other communities, we could take a huge leap forward by embracing that.
John, I had the opportunity to speak with the assistant town manager in Concord, and they've engaged in a community compact for this exact technology initiative, and they've already been, you know, benefited from technical assistance from the state on this, and they're, you know, they're looking at almost exactly what we're looking at. So, you know, I'll keep score with them and see how it goes.
Yeah.
But they're coming up with a communication strategy. They're looking at their infrastructure. They're trying to get more citizen engagement technology-wise. So they were pretty excited about the support they're getting.
We can actually mention too that that Aaron Heyer, our director of technology, just recently won a statewide recognized award for his work here in Foxborough. So we can also share good information with other people as well, and at the same time we're able to learn from others. We can share some of our best practices as well.
I think, you know, we have the meeting coming up next week. Infrastructure is a huge, huge item that we need to get our hands around. I mean, you sit in those meetings and you have people kind of looking at each other saying, you know we have to do this, but how do we get there? You know, I mean, mean, this is great, because there's other communities that have done this. They've gone through the grant process, they've built out their infrastructure, and the development follows. And, you know, you can't develop and then put in the infrastructure. You gotta get the
That's right.
infrastructure in first. So, to me, I mean, that's a key right there.
We can do more than one, I mean, but if there is.
Well, you know, to John's point, I mean, I don't think, we don't wanna take on too much, but I think we have to narrow it down to, you know, maybe the top three to focus on.
So far, I've heard technology, finance, and now infrastructure.
Because I think the infrastructure and the finance piece are gonna kinda
Dovetail together.
tie into each other.
Maybe a nice first step with Paige Duncan, the new planner, would to sit down and go through this. I mean, there's transportation in here. She may have an expertise, or may have gone through some of these already. That would be helpful.
Bill, you were saying that we put this list together. I mean, it wasn't just you and Mary Beth, did you consult with the other boards and commissions and departments in town?
Some of them, yes.
So
Not all
we're
of them.
actually the last ones to be,
Well, not necessarily, no, because we haven't reached out to the school department yet. So
Okay.
we're gonna, but you had mentioned at the other meeting that you wanted to have a further discussion here, so I
Yeah.
think it's appropriate to have that.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
I think it's a step, definitely a step in the right direction. And thanks for bringing this to us. What type of schedule are you looking at if the town is gonna go in this direction at the state level?
I'd like to get something submitted by the end of the first part of next month, if we can.
Okay.
So to the extent that I can get, if anybody has any further input.
And then you
please
can
let me
add
know.
to it, right?
Yeah, that's right. You can always add to it.
Yeah, so it's flexible.
Okay, so I know, I mean, our next meeting is packed already.
Mhm.
Who was sending those emails? I don't know if it was Deb or you were. There's nothing else that can fit on that, so maybe the following meeting,
November.
take a second look, and if you want to add or subtract based on this discussion.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bill, is there a window by which we have to act on this?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I don't think there's, it's kind of
Just
a
don't wanna
rolling,
miss-
it's
just
kind of
don't
a
wanna
rolling
miss it.
deadline, right.
Okay.
So, good.
Okay. Town warrant articles. So in our packet, as we do each meeting, there's a list of items, and then what was given to us tonight was the actual draft of the town meeting legal notice. So Tuesday, the 23rd of February is the date that we collectively have decided for town meeting. Big ticket item on that is a town hall, so that allows the town hall to get out, get prices back, and go forward in a direction.
Right, it's, the primary purpose of the article is for funding.
Yep. And then associated with that, there's a whole bunch of different articles, some contracts. But from our list, is there anything that needed to be stricken and taken off that you don't think should be on
Just
this?
a real quick question. Has anyone talked to AdCom about their ability to handle this in the middle of budget reviews?
Well, we talked about, we met with them today, we met with the vice chairman today, and we're trying to limit it, obviously, so we know that there's not gonna be, this is, the list here, I'm actually gonna show a couple that are gonna be taken off
Okay.
right now, but.
But I mean, I, as long as they're involved in the discussion, because a few weeks ago, I heard from a few AdCom folks that weren't, it's just, can't do it. So hopefully that's been brokered.
Yeah, I haven't heard that, so, I mean, that hasn't been shared with me, so I
Okay.
directly, but, I mean, we talked about it today at a meeting.
We'll have a discussion on the fourth meeting.
On the fourth meeting, yeah.
Okay,
Fourth,
as long as they're in the conversation.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
They should have something to look at by their first meeting, so.
When's their first meeting? Because they had, they were
November
supposed.
4th. November 4th,
'Cause they,
yeah.
is that to replace the one that was canceled?
Yes. So if we go down the list, I had the list of documents, that, I don't know if you have this list right here.
This is in your packet.
All right, and that doesn't necessarily equate to the draft warrant that you have in front of you. But the, in terms of how they're ordered, but the first one is abandon a portion of Liberty Place. I don't know that there's any reason why that can't wait for the annual meeting, because it's associated with the town hall project. If the town hall gets approved, obviously, that would be something we'd want to focus on at the annual to abandon.
It's almost a
portion.
housekeeping issue.
Yeah, it
after
really
the
is
fact.
at that point.
Yeah.
The home rule petition for child abuse, the board had already indicated that we're gonna put this on your meeting, so that's already in there. The liquor license requests, I'm not quite certain where that's at with you. I know that we're gonna try and take up the process with the new town planner as well, but I don't know where that stands. I know that, Jenny, you've been working on that.
Well, it's me/the Economic Development Committee, and I was just talking to Dave, and, you know, they have like subcommittees that they're gonna be looking at, because, because the warrant article that you have now is strictly for Forbes Crossing, now what is, right now, Foxfield Plaza. But the question is, we always had a question, did we want to provide licenses in the other nodes, because we wanted them to be site-specific.
Well, the question do you want them to be site-specific, or do you want them to be general, so that the town the board could actually make that determination where they go?
Well, a while ago, we determined that the route of economic development in these nodes was liquor licenses. They were very important.
Right.
So I think we, going back to Ginny's point about site specificity, I think if we at least allocated them to the nodes, then we would guarantee that there'd be at least some basis for economic development, hotels, restaurants, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's important, because I think the town meeting, I think, there was questions a few years ago where, you know, how many do we need, where are they gonna go, blah, blah. I think there's a comfort level if you have site-specific, you know, meaning in the nodes.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think if you limit it to a building versus an area, I think that's probably.
No, it's always been nodes.
It would be an area.
An area, in the
downtown
nodes.
Foxfield Plaza.
Nodes.
Fair enough.
Right, the nodes.
Yeah, that way you kind of control the development nodes, where
Right.
they go. And I think, and we'll discuss this at the next Economic Development Committee meeting, I think the town should have at least 1 or 2 liquor licenses so they have some flexibility if something pops up and not in one of those nodes, and it's a really good opportunity for the town. They should have that flexibility. Because if we're gonna go for, you know, whatever the number is, 6 or 8 additional liquor licenses, and we're gonna go through the home rule petition process, let's add a couple just in case, so we don't have to go back, you know, for 2 liquor licenses.
Right.
You know, so I think we want to be correct in the number that we're gonna ask for.
And we had, Sharon had Ryan prepare a map of the node, you know, the different nodes, plus the downtown area. And there was one section of the downtown area that she wanted to change the zoning, just move it up a little bit to include that. But it was basically in the business nodes, but also a few for the possible downtown areas. So we still have that map. It's still available.
So the question that's before you tonight then is, are you prepared to do this at the special, or would you rather wait for the annual?
Well, I think we're kind of, if Forbes Crossing's going forward, we'd be doing him a disservice.
Right.
If we waited.
Because it takes a while for this legislation to go through.
That's fine.
So that's why I think as soon as we can, especially for the Forbes Crossing.
Can we get all our ducks in a row by February?
Yeah.
I
I think so. It's just sitting down, we kind of had an idea of what we wanted.
Yeah.
It was just with Sharon's passing, the coordinator was gone.
Yeah.
I think we're all in agreement, we need more. The question is how many.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I mean, we wanna go for each overlay district. So I think that's just a number that we need to
Yeah.
get to.
And it's just a matter of sitting down and really
Yeah.
talking about it. You know.
So I think during the month of November, we really need to focus on that, to get that squared away.
That's what I'd like to do, yeah.
So is the general consensus that you want to keep it on?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I would.
think we should.
Yeah.
I'm not, but it's not a strong opposition. If we had them there, You know, if you have 5, you'll get 5 applications. If you had 10, you'll have 10 applications. If we were that serious, I mean, the 3 nodes are Route 1, Foxfield Plaza, and downtown. There's no other areas we're talking about, right?
Well,
So-
I guess the only other would be the green area.
So downtown, nobody's asking for them right now because there's really no development going on,
Right.
because we still trying to figure out the sewer thing.
Mm.
Route 1, we've been going back and forth, but nobody, you know, if we had 5, they'd take 5 maybe, Route 1
yeah.
with businesses, but in Foxfield Plaza, it's just starting the redevelopment, they're going through the permit process. They've got liquor licenses there already. I don't know, I haven't done the, I don't remember the math, you guys know?
I think
I
they
think
were
they
looking
wanted
for 2,
at
though.
least-
They're looking
yeah.
they're looking for 2.
But between now and getting it all figured out for the fall town meeting versus putting it on the spring, I think if we were serious about it and did a really good job, it would be better off in the spring. That way we can say, we looked
Right.
at it and we need this amount. But I'm not strong about that
Yeah.
because I don't want to miss an opportunity if Foxfield Plaza
Right.
is all of a sudden needing it and it's not there.
You're talking fall town meeting, meaning the one in February.
Yes.
But it's already October.
Right,
So,
I know.
yeah. I just don't think
Yeah,
we're any
yeah.
further than we were 6 months ago or a year, other than we
I
keep
think
bringing it up.
I think we can put this together rather quickly.
Mm.
Some of these other ones, I'm not so sure.
Mm.
So I think there'll be a trade-off.
Okay. I haven't been involved in the
Yep.
meetings and the discussions you've been having on this topic, but I just don't see a lot coming back that says, all right, we've done all this research and we're ready to go. If we're starting it now, between now and February,
Mhm.
there's a lot to do.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So at this point I'm.
Keep
coming
it
back
on.
to- keep
Yeah,
it on?
that's fine.
Okay, fair enough. And then Town Hall project, we know that's on. The sewer capacity's off. I talked to Roger this afternoon, he said that we're okay with that. The overlay
What do you
district.
mean off, what?
They said there's nobody requesting capacity at this point for, I said they can wait till the annual.
Oh,
So it's-
wait till the
Yeah,
annual.
wait till the
Okay.
annual, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The overlay district, I don't know the answer to this one, if they need to do
According
this.
to Bill Caspera, this one's been removed too. This one
Very
can
well.
wait.
Okay, this can wait. And personnel bylaws, that could wait too, potentially, right? Yeah.
I think that can.
The contracts, I think we have to get done. We're close to getting resolutions here, so you want to try and put those forward. So there's 3 of them, but, and then the removal of the police chief position from civil service is important timing-wise, because the chief is in his final year of eligibility for service to this community, so we need to start the recruitment process sooner rather than later. I can't do that until we have an answer on this. We can start the process, but it would be.
Better get this in place
we need
first.
this needs to be clarified.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we need to get that going.
So out of the 11, 4 just dropped off, the Liberty Place, sewer capacity, overlay district, personnel bylaws. So we've got 7 left.
And then, and there's one last one that Roger Hill has told me about, which is actually the capital item, which needs to be listed, and it's for a water main,
It's in your draft as Article 7.
Yeah.
When
So
did
that would be-
when did that come up?
He he mentioned that to us this past week. He said there's something they've been talking about.
It's a CIP issue using available funds.
They have the money, it's just to
You
make,
just
kind
have
of
to
getting
move
an
the money.
authorization for it within their existing funds.
So if it falls under the CIP process and budget, why would it be an annual town meeting? Or a special town meeting item?
Yeah, why wouldn't it be in the May meeting?
Well, it will have to, the committee can review it. The committee will, sorry.
The committee will still be
Because, yeah, the committee will still review it for the special.
But can they approve it and authorize it under their process?
Yes.
Okay, so why would it have to be an annual why would it be a town meeting warrant article then?
Oh, no, I don't think they still require authorization from town meeting to spend the funds.
Question is why now versus then? Roger, I think, wants to get started sooner rather than later.
Are you wondering whether just the capital committee has to do this as opposed to town meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
What I'm
I
saying,
think
if it's
they have to
under
do-
their
it's a
authority
two-pronged
as
process.
part of their process that we always do,
Well, that's just
that's fine.
prioritizing, and that's,
No, they prioritize it and they vote on it.
but
and
still
it
has to
moves
go to town
forward.
meeting. The capital budget still goes to town meeting.
Yeah, but we're pulling one out
You're
called the
not
water
prioritizing,
main
yeah.
part of that.
You're making it number one because there's nothing else.
Correct, yeah.
So you're prioritizing it number one. That's to your point. There's no list
Right,
to
but
prioritize.
There is
Is
a
that what
capital
you're
list that's been
saying?
approved for this fiscal year.
Yes.
Okay? This is a new project that he wants to get done sooner rather than later, so we can get the process done during the time frame. That's coming up in the
So
spring.
it's not part of the CIP process then?
Right.
It still is, but not.
Could you just come to the, yeah, sorry. That's why I don't like last minute things. The warrant was already set and it just doesn't make sense. It's either a CIP process or it's not.
Right, and the CIP committee would still need to convene to consider the request. The funding source for this would be within existing resources within the water enterprise.
Okay.
And you're asking an excellent question, you know, why this one out of the annual order that we normally take. And I think Roger's made the case he wants to get it started earlier, but that's, in that forum, the CIP committee forum, I believe that's a question that Roger would need to answer. Why are we doing this one before we even discuss prioritizing the capital for the next fiscal year?
Yeah.
But I think he's convinced that he needs to get going.
He's
on
made
this
that
one.
abundantly clear to us, that he needs to proceed.
But
Is this a bit of an emergency project?
I can't speak to that.
Okay.
Can't say it was an emergency, but it was something that, it was really important to the timing.
And you
of
said
why it was
is
being
this
done.
drafted in the draft we just got?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it's in there.
Article 7.
7?
He lists the locations there for the main replacement.
I think it ties into some of his road
Right.
work as well. So it allows him to get going on the main replacement, so he can get the road work done the same year.
So if they're asking the town to raise and appropriate the money, this is not part of the enterprise fund?
It still will be. Enterprise funds are still raised and appropriated. So yes, all funds would come out of the water enterprise. And he has existing capital funds for this. He just wants to be able to have them authorized specifically for this
So this is
purpose.
Lakeview Road, so this is the water main going up to Lakeview Pavilion?
And this is enterprise fund, so it's not competing with the other funding for the other CIP.
Correct. It's not competing with
That's
general fund
general
capital.
fund.
Correct.
Right.
Just competing with other water capital.
Which also
Right.
ties into the fact that if they can get this done, then they can also focus on getting 140 redone at the same time. In that section of 140, which is in tough shape. I think the state wants to get going on that.
Gotta look at the sewer map.
Mhm.
'Cause
Mhm.
You pave that, you're not opening it up for 5 years.
I don't know if we have sewer in that area.
Well, that's what I'm saying, we gotta look at it.
Take a look.
If you're gonna open it up, that's the opportunity.
I think these are all the great questions the CIP committee would need to vet.
So that's the list of issues.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
Should we close this, so no last-minute requests start to trickle in between now and?
I would highly recommend that at this point. Because we want to make sure that we're trying to keep this as limited as possible.
I'd love to close it, but I don't want to make that decision this process, it should be advertised in the
Right.
paper that says we're gonna close on such and such date. get
Yeah, I
your
wouldn't recommend do it
articles.
tonight, but I would say at your next meeting, you do that for sure.
You know what I'm saying? So
Oh,
somebody,
yeah,
it's
no,
just
I
gonna
would-
catch somebody by surprise. It should, to be honest
I
with
agree
you, it
with
should have been closed already.
Yeah.
And we probably should have done that already. I mean, what's happened is the town meeting has been pushed off because of town hall.
Right.
This process keeps going, but at some point, we
You
should have
just cut it off.
closed
Yeah,
it,
just cut
yeah.
it off. I mean, the only one that really has come in at the last minute was the water main thing. I mean, that was something that when they start looking at all their capital plans, they realize, if we do this now, we can get this done, get it and tied into our road projects.
The timing would still be good if you did the November 3rd you closed, because
Mhm.
these are going to AdCom on the 4th, and
Right.
concurrently, these will go to town council now that you've determined your list, so we
We'll-
should
we'll
still
clean
be
'em up and get 'em to the
on
Monday.
target for the 4th.
They'll be in good shape. Any further questions or issues on the warrant?
Just a clerical, so I counted 7, this meets 8, and we only have 7 on the, oh no, 8, sorry, on the last page. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Draft vehicle use policy. Flying through this agenda tonight, aren't we?
So,
Anyone
I
else seem like this is
apologize for
taking forever?
your,
It's just me.
Bill's update.
Oh, I did, sorry. Bill, you want to give
Wanna
your,
do your update?
I'm sorry.
Sure, I'll do it real quick. Let me find my notes here. Actually, I wrote everything down and I turned it on. Oh, here we go. That's right here. Yeah, there was just 3 items I want to mention. 4 actually. First of all, I just want to thank the fire department for the program that they put together on Sunday for the annual mass that they do for the protective firefighters, as well as their annual awards meeting, which they held at the public safety building. Appreciate the fact that they do that, because I think it just really further binds that operation together, and I appreciate the fact that they recognize their own members for doing that. So it was a good thing for them to do. The chairman mentioned earlier that there was a $160,000 study that's been approved, which includes actually 2 regional planning commissions, the MAPC, Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, and SERPID, which is the Southeastern Regional Planning Commission. Both of those commissions will work together because Norton's actually located in SERPID, and where Mansfield and I believe it's in Foxborough, located in the MAPC. Or is Mansfield and SERPID too?
Mansfield and Foxborough together. Norton is.
That's right.
separate.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. And so they will work together to try and pull this together for us. But congratulations and thanks to State Representative and State Senators for pulling this off, because it really was an easy thing to do, given the fact there's a lot of competing interests for this money.
Yeah. I'm sorry, just to correct, so Mansfield and Norton are together. Foxborough was the odd person out, and they included us in.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And we were able to get. So, and it was a good point that was made earlier. Maybe we should go right to Route 1 in terms of 140 to see the impact along that road, as opposed to stopping at what was the Foxborough the charter school.
Yeah.
So I think we may want to talk about that. I don't think it'll be that much of an increase in cost by doing that. So we're going to get going on that process really soon. I'm pleased to announce that the planning board selected a new town planner this past Thursday night. She's Paige Duncan, who is, many of you will know, recognize the name as the Rentham town planner, has been in that position for almost 20 years now. She is she's highly qualified. She's AICP certified, American Institute of Certified Planners. She has come to us with tremendous enthusiasm. She really is excited about getting started here. This is one of the jobs that she's always aspired to be at. So she made that really well known during her interview, and we're very pleased to have her. She will be starting here officially December 2nd, but she has, I do believe she'll be working with us periodically in between that period of time, so we can get some things going. Maybe she can help us with some of the outstanding issues that we've got going right now. But she's a good find, and I congratulate the planning board for making a great selection. It came down to 2 very good finalists, 2 excellent finalists, and they had a tough decision to make. But they clearly it was clear that they were very interested in Paige right from the beginning. So again, thank you to Mary Beth for helping coordinate that process. Went along pretty smoothly. Again, it was 2 processes where we didn't get a lot of candidates, the library director and the planning director, but that's pretty common these days. You don't get for either one of those positions a lot of candidates, but you had quality candidates, and so we're really pleased to see we're getting that level of quality here in this community. So I'm pleased to see that. And then last thing, this morning I was asked to attend a meeting out at the Foxborough MBTA parking lot that we use for commuters. The Mansfield MBTA station is going to be going under some renovations during the next 18 to 24 months. Will they be, where they're gonna be using some of their existing parking spaces around, in and around the station itself. And they've indicated they've asked if, and the town of Mansfield reached out to us as well as the MBTA, if we could share some of those spaces that we're not using for outside people to use. Now, we wouldn't do it for free. I wouldn't suggest that they do it.
On County Street.
And one on County Street. And the suggestion I had to them was that perhaps we could do it if they had a permit and they paid for the permit to do that, and they'd bring in some revenue that we're not getting any revenue from that right now. But I suggested to them that they wanted 50 spaces. I think we can comfortably do 30. As I went out there and I talked with the GATRA representative who would know because they run the bus there all the time, you know, how full is this parking lot all the time? And he said, you know, 30 spaces will be fine. He said, there'll be plenty of spaces left over for anyone who uses it, so.
Is temporary or permanent?
Strictly temporary. It would be throughout the term of the construction. It would certainly help out Mansfield, help out the MBTA. And also, we might pick up some revenue. So, and the question is, you know, if we sell the permits, what would be the rate that we would do so? And so, I'll get into that a little bit more before, I want to think that through a little bit more before I do that. But I would venture to say to you that it probably wouldn't be at the same level that they're charging right around the station, because there's an inconvenience of paying when you're further away, you know. So even if we charge, say, half of what they're getting right now, it's still it's a revenue generator for us. But by the same token, it helps them out. So I think we would still gain a lot of use out of that.
The spaces that are being taken away at the Mansfield station, are those for Mansfield resident only spaces?
Yeah, so some of them are, yes. And I think actually most of them are, from my understanding. So the problem is that they need a lay-down area, and it's in and around the station.
Yeah.
And so that was the way it was explained to me today.
Yeah.
When is that construction supposed to begin?
They said it was going to be 18-month period, so they haven't started yet, obviously. So I'm venturing that from about a 2-year period starting from today forward. It could be less than that.
All right.
But for that period of time, they would need our help with that situation. So, but I didn't feel comfortable granting that. I thought that's something that the board would have to approve. So I said we would look into it and ask to.
I mean, there is a history from that lot, and tried to do the purchase that didn't work. I mean, the individual spaces. Then it was a lottery. Then it was a free. So it's worthwhile if you haven't heard the history. That Randy was one of the initiators of that whole thing too. You know the history?
Yes,
of it?
I've heard. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
And I understand that we leveraged a couple $1 million, I think, from the state and federal government.
Oh, it was a cleanup site.
It was a cleanup site,
yeah.
and we I think we only spent like close to $15,000, which was nothing.
Yeah, it was
in the
lights
scheme
and
of things.
electricity.
Yeah. So conceivably, you could earn that money back through this process. So it may be one way of addressing that.
Well, I mean, the fact remains it's been chronically underutilized.
Right.
And I just was wondering if you want to extend something a little bit longer to the town of Mansfield, to charge to park there, wouldn't be a bad idea either. Because it is. I go by it every morning.
Yeah, it is
if
always.
It's ever a third full, that's a lot of people.
When I was there this morning, it was about half full.
That's a lot.
Which was a lot. And he said that. He said, this is a lot compared to what I'm usually seeing. Yeah, so.
Some residents would say it was half empty.
Well, the thing
one,
is.
one in particular.
One thing the town, we should look into doing is issuing temporary parking passes for that.
Well, we do for
town
residents.
We do for town residents.
Yeah.
I was told a year ago that unless I was gonna use it all the time, then I couldn't get a parking pass for it.
No, you
Like
can get a parking
full-time,
pass and use it once.
Yeah.
I was told we couldn't, so.
Okay, well, we'll clarify that.
Yeah, and that's something we can get up on the Facebook
And-
page.
Yeah, and put it out there. It was interesting to note that I saw a few passes out there. People hang them in their windshield, or in their mirror, rather. And I noticed a couple that actually had expired, so we need to, do a little bit better job of taking a look at that. And there was some that didn't have any. So, we'll have to take a better look at that. And I think, one thought that we talked about is that maybe we come up with a different approach with a gate system, where you have a card and just, residents would be issued a card and they can use it with a card and just update it periodically. Anyone else would have to have a special card for that. That way we wouldn't have to monitor it. It'd be self-monitoring. So, something to think about.
So I don't think you hear any opposition from the board for pursuing that. I think it's a positive thing.
Great, thank you. And that was all I had.
Bill,
for
one
tonight.
question.
Sure.
We haven't talked about this in a few weeks. Has there been any further conversations with the craft organization on the Optum Lounge situation?
We're having a conversation next week.
Good, okay, as long as it's still going.
Yeah, and I think I was telling Jenny today, there was an initial meeting that was canceled because of a death, and then
Yes.
it took a while to get, but it's Wednesday or Thursday of next week.
I think it's Wednesday of next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's at the attorneys to attorneys type meeting. It's
No, I just hadn't heard of anything in the last month. I'm just hoping it was still going on.
Yeah, I'm scheduled for next week. Okay.
Okay, thank you. The draft policy for vehicle
I
use.
apologize for the heavy 16-page draft vehicle policy. The history on this is, as you know, when I was hired, I sort of took over, some policies, some not so updated, some non-existent. So we did a review of the vehicle policy, and at one of our loss control meetings where Maya sends their representative, we talked about, there was an opportunity because a shared vehicle was becoming available this year. When the building inspector got a new car, there was going to be a shared vehicle. Several departments had been requesting a vehicle, and we came up with the idea of sharing between conservation, assessors, and planning the old building inspector vehicle. So in our discussions in loss control and reviewing good risk management policies, we brought our vehicle policy, which was 2.5 pages, and he was like, this doesn't even cover what you need to cover when you have people using your cars. So he directed me to their website where I found the draft vehicle use policy from Maya. So that is where ours was created from. And I do have a copy of Maya's draft policy because a couple of questions came up before the meeting, so I can just pass those down. There was some language that was unclear to everyone, and I looked back, and there were some sections that we questioned, and actually the origin of some of them came from the original Maya policy. So I've marked off with a little blue tab. This was Maya's draft policy. There was a question folks had about the employees who commute more than 25 miles. I've marked you a little blue tab on page 6. So that one, in Maya's policy, that was something that Maya recommended in their language.
So when you say the Maya policy, this is dated in 2010.
Yeah, they had that on their website, and we took that as a template, and we created what we gave to you tonight as the Foxborough policy.
So back up until you created this draft, this 2010 policy was what we used?
No, we actually we never used this policy. We had a 2004, a 2010, and a 2012 version of our vehicle use policy, but we never consulted with Maya or our attorney, to my knowledge, to see if it was an adequate policy.
It wasn't comprehensive at all.
So the last one we used was a 2010, which is not this one.
It wasn't that, no. The 2010 policy was only 2 pages. We had the 2012 policy was 2.5, and it's very user-friendly, and it does cover us for some liability, but not to the maximum risk management standards that Maya looks for.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Mary Beth, could you, just to get back to this paragraph, could you explain where the confusion is?
So in the draft vehicle use policy that folks asked me about, we had on page 5 this thing about employees who commute more than 25 miles one way shall reimburse the town for the additional fuel cost as determined by the finance director. Employees who have been assigned a municipal vehicle and who have an established commuting pattern of more than 25 miles one way prior to July 2006 shall be exempt from this provision as long as there is no break in assignment of a municipal vehicle greater than 6 months, after which the exemption will no longer apply. And Maya based this on an insurance appeal that they had. So anything prior to 2006 was was not covered. I can direct you to the end of this policy, page 14. For anybody who is commuting more than 25 miles one way, and we don't have anybody right now to fall under this, but you never know. It's bullet point number 2 on page 14 of your policy. I'm not looking at the Maya model policy now, I'm looking at the town of Foxborough policy. The town manager can make an exclusion about the, if an employee commutes greater than 25 miles and reimbursing the town. So that was something a question that came up. It was an unusual situation, and when looking at all of our department heads who are issued 24/7, there's, the 2 chiefs, the deputy, the DPW director, town engineer, they are all within 25 miles. The other, use will be obviously the shared vehicle. Right now we have inspectional services, Board of Health shares 1 vehicle, Animal Control has a vehicle. Those 3 departments I mentioned earlier, Conservation, Planning, and Assessors are gonna share a vehicle. All of those are.
Building commissioners
Yeah,
vehicle.
and all of those are left at town hall, they're not taken home.
So one of the questions I had, and I had emailed you a bunch of questions, did you get
I
those?
have those,
Okay,
yep.
Yep.
so vehicles that people are allowed to take home, I understand public safety, but are there other departments that take vehicles home that's not part of their contract? I should
To
say?
my knowledge, they are not, but the new vehicle policy will eliminate that. So the people that are designated the 24/7 would be like police chief, fire deputy. I believe that maybe the day captain if he's doing inspections, DPW director, town engineer, people who have to respond to a 24/7 emergency. Inspectional folks are not taking vehicles home. And I don't think there's any other designee that you're allowed to take a car home, or it's either written in their contract or won't be in the vehicle. It is part of the vehicle policy that'll be reviewed. We do have, everyone will need to review the policy and sign off on it. This has been vetted. This is about 3 months worth of work. So we gave it to the loss control group, which has department heads on it. We gave it to our operations group. We gave it to the people who we know are gonna be sharing a vehicle. So it's gone to every level, and it was reviewed by HR counsel, who's looking at all of our policies for us.
Just so everybody knows, the only 2 contractual employees that would come to mind, well, there were only 6 in town per se. There's myself, the police chief, fire chief, library director. Library director is not, by the way. But potentially is under state statute. School superintendent, and finance director. They're the only ones that can actually have a contract legally under the state statute.
Oh, you're just saying ones with contracts?
Those are
Yeah.
contracts,
I thought you
not
said-
cars.
Yeah, the contractual.
No,
You meant the
if-
library director needed a car.
No.
If you're a non.
That's why you wanted the job here.
If you're a non-contract person, we usually determine in the job description that you need a Massachusetts valid driver's license to do the job, and that would be also included in if it was a 24/7 requirement for the job description, we would provide use of a vehicle to be taken home. But this policy clearly allows the town manager to make that determination. So we did do an audit. It's the other thing known as the eye chart that you got today. We had just met last week with our insurance adjuster, and she gave us our fleet schedule. So these are all up-to-date vehicles on here. We've blacked out anything that's like a school bus, something that won't get taken home, a fire engine, sidewalk plow, those kind of things. These are all vehicles that may at some point be a shared vehicle, or potentially taken home. But a lot of this is just, someone has to pop to an inspection or to a municipal meeting, and they will sign out the car, and give it back within the same day.
Mary Beth, you said we had an existing policy.
Mhm.
Did we get a copy of that to compare?
I have a copy here.
Can we get a copy?
Yeah, I can send
It-
around, these are the different variations of policies we've had in the past. I
Of
can
the
just send
latest.
around all three.
Can you send out an email of just the latest?
Just the latest
Yep.
one.
policy?
Just the
Okay.
latest one. The one that was in force.
The 2012 one, okay.
I think what we're used to seeing is side by side, but your 16 pages versus the few, it might not be possible to do side by
Yeah,
side
there's
comparison
very
with
little
strikeouts.
from this
Yeah,
policy that
that's
wasn't
what I'm
already
thinking.
included in the 16. We did, the major changes were, wherever we saw the word HR department, we changed it to town manager's office. We changed HR director to town manager or designee. But I will send you.
Yeah, and then we
that.
have the Maya one so that we can like
Yep.
look at the consolidated.
Pretty much, you'll notice the Maya one is, now the Foxborough got stamped right on it. Yeah. And we did send this around and got some comments, so we did make a few, changes that way. So, no urgency, wanted to have you, have the chance to read this, talk through it, see what you think. The current vehicle policy is in effect, so if people are sharing it, you know, there is a policy in effect right now, so there's not an emergency to vote on this, but it's just in the spirit of cleaning up policies before we get too busy with warrant stuff. All right, so I'll send around the 2012 policy.
Thank you, and I know there's a lot of work to coordinate. I think from my perspective, when I got 16 pages and I saw a lot of exemptions, I'll be honest with you, less is better.
Mhm.
I would be happy if nobody took a vehicle home.
Yeah.
Understanding, public
Yeah.
safety, but I'd be hard pressed to find anyone else that needed a vehicle
Yeah.
back and forth every day.
Right. A lot of this is just popping in, like I said, and sharing a vehicle to do people don't want to take their cars if they're going off to a conservation site or something
No,
like
but I'm
that.
of the mind, Jim, that when it comes to insurance and liability, more is better. You almost have to anticipate the unbelievable, that it may never happen.
Oh, yeah,
But
as
it
far
never-
as policy, but I'm on the opposite side, that less is better. That
In terms of
it
the
gets-
people, actual
Yeah,
people
it gets
being
parked here
covered, yeah.
unless you need it, you take it. If not,
That's-
there's nothing
that's
worse
Oh,
than
yeah,
pretty
seeing
much
it.
and
the
again,
policy.
we only have a few that take, we went through this when we went through the fire chief's contract.
Mhm.
We went through that policy and tried to interpret it, and it was some tough sledding there for a while, so this is much better.
So, just for my clarification, you said the only ones now that take a vehicle home are the police chief,
Fire chief.
deputy fire chief, and the DPW director.
I believe the town.
Bob Worthley.
Bob Worthley has
Bob
to
Worthley,
take one
yeah.
home because of the 24/7
7 water, he's the
requirement.
water
So
superintendent.
that's 5
I
vehicles.
believe town engineer, does he take his home?
That I don't know.
I haven't.
I don't think.
Can you find
I
out
don't know.
for
Yeah, we
us?
will. We'll send you a
Yeah.
list with the
Yeah.
policy.
But I
And
know that,
all the town vehicles are clearly marked town vehicles.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
It is our goal someday to have them all, at least, like, if you line them all up, all the logos and the inspections, that would all look the same, but as,
Yeah.
But they're all marked now.
Yep.
Oh,
They
yes.
are.
Yeah. And all those people live locally, right here in Foxborough. That's my knowledge.
Yeah.
Except
I think
for the town
one's in
engineer.
Easton, no, town engineer's in Foxborough. I
Oh,
think
oh, yes.
water
okay.
supervisors. in
Water
Easton.
supervisors, right, he's in Easton.
No,
He's the
somebody
other,
takes isn't there somebody in the water department takes a truck home?
I think they do if they're on call.
If they're on call.
If they're on
Yeah, if they're
call?
on
Yeah, the
call.
on-call
Yeah,
person
only
has
if,
to.
the on-call person would, yeah.
Okay.
And that's a
And
rotation.
this policy covers the school administration, or is that separate?
The schools are covered under our insurance policy, but they have, through Ed Reform, they have this giant policy manual that they have to use for accreditation. And Deb and I had a talk last week, we met, and we talked about which of our policies cross over and which are, which apply, like their IT policies are so thick, we need a much smaller one on the town side. So some of them cut across. I am gonna offer this one to them, that's what we do, we share policies with one another. Like our Corey policy is simple compared to theirs, because they require fingerprinting. So there are some policies that we can use across, but a lot of them have to
But
be
aside from the
interpreted.
policy, if we're getting a list of town-owned vehicles
Mhm.
and then users are taking them home,
Mhm.
does the school administration staff included in that list?
I don't think there's anybody taking cars home on the school side.
The only person that might be
Tony's got his own
but
truck.
Tony's 24/7 because of the buildings.
Yeah.
Buildings.
So we can
Well,
put
it might
them
be
in
so,
that
but I'm
list.
saying is, are they
Yeah.
included in this list? I just want, what I'm looking for is an inclusive list.
Yep.
If it's a
Fair
town-owned
enough.
vehicle,
Mhm.
regardless of whose department it is, it's
Yeah.
on that
Okay.
list.
Yeah, Tony was the one exception that I could think of.
I just had a question unrelated to this, but I remember last year, we implemented a policy of no parking during the winter on town property. When does that kick in?
No parking on town.
Yeah, there was parking
Because
at
of
the
the problems with,
at the
snow
IGO school and
removal.
as well as
Yeah.
behind Town Hall.
I mean, does that kick
If
in
a storm
like
was
when
coming,
it
people would take
snows, or
their
does
cars
that-
off the street and put them in a town parking lot.
The catalyst for that discussion was there was some damage done to a private vehicle on town property because it was being
Wow.
plowed and the car got damaged.
Right.
We went through a process that says if it's town property, there's no overnight parking.
There's supposed to be some signs that were put up, weren't there?
There
They were,
signs
and then they were like
taken, a
knocked
couple of them were
down
taken
and-
down.
So my question is, when does that kick in? Is there a date, or is it just when it snows?
I don't know the answer to that.
I didn't even- I wasn't
didn't-
aware of that
that wasn't-
policy.
yeah.
I think, yeah,
Yeah, it's-
it was, it,
So, yeah.
honestly, it
That's
had
the first
nothing
I've
to
heard
do
about
with
that.
snow. It was 24/7. If
Okay.
it's town property, you can't put private vehicles. You can't use.
All year long?
All year long.
Yeah,
So
I
if you
don't-
look at the IGO school, there's a sign there that says.
There's also vehicles.
I don't remember
Yeah,
that being
exactly.
I don't remember that conversation at all
With the
here.
horrible
No, it's
winter
before
we
your
had
time.
last
Oh,
year,
before
your
yeah, I
time.
thought.
Or maybe when Bobby was.
No, it was an issue with Maya, and the insurance rates went down because of, they would go down if you implemented this policy, and the policy was initiated because it was a claim against the town for a private vehicle. It was at the town hall parking lot where it got damaged.
So then there were signs put up, and the signs, I think somebody hit a sign or something. But anyway,
It was about
I've
2.5
noticed
years ago.
there's parking on town property.
I would think that'd probably be a winter thing more than anything, but you're probably right. Because you don't really, I mean, you do see it at town hall, obviously, because of the funeral home.
Mm.
People park there, but they don't park overnight. They
Yeah,
just-
it
they
was
just-
the
Right, this was
overnight issue.
overnight.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just for the winter. Was it all
It was
year
all
round?
year round.
No, I
year
think we
round?
concluded it had to be all year long.
All year round?
Just around here, you don't know when winter begins and ends.
Yeah.
Okay, so
All right.
robust agenda. Can we go through some action items? No, let's see mine.
Good.
There's extras.
All right, action items. Number one, Council on Aging, I make a motion, we accept the gift donation of $200 from the Serenading Seniors in memory of Ted Inman with gratitude.
So I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded with gratitude. Any further discussion? Thank you very much. All those in favor? Motion
Aye.
carries 5-0.
Number two, Toby Keith's, make a motion, we approve the Sunday early openings during Patriots home games from 1 PM to 11 AM on 10/25, 15, 11, 8/15, and 12/20/15.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Further discussion?
None of these dates are in the suspension period, is it?
Yes. Well, there was, in our packet, there's ABCC did operate a sting, I don't know if it was a sting operation, but they found in violation. They went through the process, and I think it was December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. It was a
Yeah.
3-day suspension, so.
So they don't overlap with these dates?
No.
But it's within, it's between the
it's in-
11/8 and the
I don't know why you
12/20.
wanna do that.
In other words, they're
Was it-
being suspended within the span of
What they're requesting.
what they're requesting.
Was it within the 60 days too, also? Didn't we have a requirement, it has to be within 60 days of the determination? Something
I'm
like
not
that.
following.
Yeah, I'm not following either.
Didn't we have something that they had to
Oh, we don't
do
know.
the suspension
That's-
within 60 days? And I don't know whether it was 60 days from the violation or 60 days from the determination.
It's from the determination.
Determination,
I'm sure they worked that out with the ABCC.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think if you read through the ABCC, our council sent a letter that says, here's our policy. please take it under advisement when you do your sanctions. And it looked like they gave a 3-day suspension, which
Yeah.
looked like was within one of our first strike.
And I appreciate that the ABCC did that, because that was consistent. I mean, it's only fair that it be consistent.
But I guess these dates are apart from the suspension date, so they probably, we could allow this.
Correct.
Yep.
Further discussion?
No, I just think it's ironic in the letter that they sent you, they tout themselves from being diligent in alcohol serving.
Who, Toby Keese?
Yeah.
I will tell you, the manager, Toby Keese, is probably the most ardent supporter of Fox Cares.
Really?
And they got, their violation was a fake ID, and they brought the ABCC in at the last meeting, and they brought in fake IDs from 4 or 5 different states. You can't tell. And it doesn't, all scanning machines don't pick up the new fake IDs that are coming in. So, you know, it's, yeah, it was a violation, but it's not from a lack of trying on their part to do the right thing.
And I think I agree. I asked for this information to be part of it just because I think it was
Yeah.
a relevant discussion item.
Yeah.
But I read through the ABCC, and I did reach out to somebody that works there, and it wasn't over-serving, and it wasn't not carding, it was a fake ID, so. For this,
I have a question for you. When you see in the police blotter, where people are taken into protective custody. Now, if you're taken into protective custody, that's from over-serving. So, at what point, is that a violation? If someone is taken into protective, if you've got 20 people taken into protective custody, doesn't that say something?
Well, the burden of proof is where did they get overserved?
Well, if they're coming from a certain establishment and the establishment is named, I mean, if they're taken under protective custody, that means they're overserved. Isn't overserving a violation?
I think it's a little more complicated. I could go into a bar and have one drink.
Right.
And have it my 8th drink, because I drank 7 at the bar
Right.
before, so it's.
Or 7 or 8 at
Or in
home.
the
Yeah,
parking lot
I
or something.
I
so
know,
it's,
but is it,
No, but it's the server who should recognize that the person was incapacitated and not serve them again. It's
right, I mean, should we, I mean, each establishment has a file. Should we take into consideration when people are taken into protective custody at an establishment? Should that be, because it's part of the police blotter, it's part of some record. And it speaks to the culture of that establishment.
I don't think you can directly attribute that unless you can prove it, that it's actually happening, because I think, I understand your point, and I think, you know, you could probably draw a blurred line, but not a clear line, because there's been situations, I mean, for instance, you have PCs at games, you have PCs at concerts, you have PCs at different situations. And those are cases sometimes where people may drink in the parking lot, and they may have one inside the establishment. And then, so then the question is, or they could be just walk into the establishment and then they get non-served, but then they walk out, and still they could be PC'd. So it's a case where you'd have to really, in order to determine that, you'd have to really do the person would have to admit to where they were served last, and then how many drinks they had.
Yeah.
And that gets a little bit more.
And plus, at
Other-
the same
other-
time, if it gets to they ask the question, where were you served last?
Yeah.
They could say any place. and
Yeah.
There's no
There's
follow-up
no
with it.
guarantee
There's
that
no
they're-
guarantee
there's
that's
no
where
guarantee
they're
that's
telling
been
the truth or
truthful.
where. So, it's a complicated issue, but.
I understand your point completely. I just wish there was.
Well, do we get, I know the reporter gets a listing of all the violations from, and I know they don't print everything. Does the town get is Town Hall get a list like every week or something?
No.
Like this is
No,
what-
the chief has it, but.
I mean, we get our police stuff from the chief, he stops by every Monday, so if you wanted to have a similar arrangement with Chief O'Leary, then you could reach out to him.
I think this was brought up a few years ago, and nothing happened. So, I mean, is that something that we could?
We could request that, yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Okay, so point of
Sorry.
order, let's finish Toby Keith's, where this is going off a little track. So the motion was made to approve it, it was seconded under discussion, we talked about a lot of stuff. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, number 3, Friends of the Foxborough Flagpole. I make a motion, we accept the gift donations from various citizens, businesses, and entities of $3,425 with gratitude.
We'll second that.
Motion made, seconded, further discussion? Quickly on the further, I think we're at 30% now, so it's.
Yeah, when I was gonna say,
Just
who's
went
in
up to
charge of
30%.
painting the flagpole?
Yeah, I know.
I was supposed to do it today.
All right.
I'll be out there tomorrow with the
All right.
paintbrush, so.
Magic
Thank you to all the
marker.
donors.
Magic mark.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye, motion carries.
All right, finally, number 4, Foxborough Planning, make a motion, we accept the gift donation of $100 for the Sharon Wasson Pavilion Fund from Alan D. Lee with gratitude.
I'll second that. And thank you, Alan.
Yep, thank you, Alan. Motion made, seconded, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 4 out of 4 on the action items. There's a couple of informational items in there. Anyone want to discuss anything on that? Seeing none. All good information.
Thank you for the newsletter.
Thank Deb.
Thanks, Deb.
Does a nice
It's all
job
her
there.
hard work.
All right, I make a motion that we close tonight's.
Motion made to close.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor?
I just
Sure.
have 2 questions to all before we do an other testing.
Sure.
I would have asked for the meeting, but I don't have to start now.
And then after the meeting closes, we really can't talk collectively to you, so let's do that now.
Yeah, good, well, sorry it's late.
Mhm.
Or the other thing, okay, so.
The only thing I'm gonna ask you is if you could go to the microphone and
Of
introduce
course.
yourself.
Very do now,
Sure.
Foxborough Reporter. Hello, guys listening. I'll hurt your eyes. We were talking about the meeting at with the craft group
Thursday, yep.
on Thursday, which we also. It's good that you mentioned that because we also got a heads up from Jeremy, and so we were a little curious about it. So,
Okay.
who reached out to make sure that happened? Was it
I reached out
you
to the craft organization, and it was in context to probably a little bit of everything, but of all the different permits and changes. I wanted the board to be able to walk and see the changes and have that dialogue there.
Excellent, very good. And is it going to be are you guys going to convene a meeting before you do it? Okay.
We will open the public meeting.
Excellent.
With a vote, as would any other board that's gonna be there, the planning board, or, I think I watched the school committee meeting last night. They're gonna have people there as well, so.
Perfect.
Any public body that has a majority will have to open up the meeting.
Excellent, that's very good to hear, actually, because, yeah, we just got it from the Patriots, and we didn't know who to organize, and I was like, oh gosh, this is gonna be a public meeting nightmare, but
Yeah,
clearly,
yeah.
obviously you guys are doing everything proper, so thank goodness. So yeah, and then with the traffic study on that street, which is unfortunately getting a lot of freeway traffic, it was the police who conducted it, correct?
On Fails and
On the Fails
Gilmore.
situation.
Yeah, Officer Hoffman did it.
Excellent. I was just going to double check that. Also, is it possible I can get a copy of the town meeting warrant with the item that you redacted? Didn't you take off a item from this from the February warrant?
Oh,
to
no,
move to the
yeah,
regular run?
each meeting we have a spreadsheet,
Mhm.
and it was 11 on it, so collectively we took off 4.
Okay.
And then we have a draft of all of so you're welcome to that as well.
Excellent. That's perfect. You guys mentioned the Optum Lounge situation.
Yep.
What's the current situation with the Optum Lounge that you guys are working with?
So we had a couple meetings on it. They came back. Initially, they requested an alteration of the liquor license. We granted that. And then one of the side items was we had to do the math of seats and ticket values. Our council wrote an opinion of the lease that was 15 years. It's a 30-year lease, so
Yeah.
15 years ago, there was a lease in payment in lieu of taxes.
Yeah.
That says X, Y, and Z. So our counsel wrote and presented it to this board at a public meeting, his interpretation of the lease.
Mhm.
The Kraft organization responded with their interpretation of the lease. So now the two attorneys are getting together next week to see if there's a way to work it out, one way or the other, or split in the middle, or part ways, we're not sure. So hopefully
Excellent.
that we get a positive result next
So
week.
it's like a continuation of the situation when they limited all those seats to make the lounge.
Correct.
Excellent. That's what I figured. Yeah, that's about everything. Thanks a lot, guys. Sorry for holding up.
Thank you. Chris's question, so the reporter gets a packet every week, right?
Yep.
They're in it. Now this information.
I didn't see was the warrant in there?
They just handed
No, we
that
did, we
out
produced that
tonight,
late this
but the
afternoon,
sheet
so
was.
you probably would've got.
You guys have an extra
Yeah.
copy?
I have a
here?
copy I can
Yeah,
give
that would
you.
just
Yeah,
save some time.
it's no problem. That's fine. Yeah, we just literally late this afternoon.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought, yeah.
I have an extra copy.
All right, so we gotta vote to close, or are we
Oh,
closed?
yeah, the motion was made, seconded. Further discussion, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks for
Okay.
sending us.